The night sky holds more than just stars. It holds the oldest stories we have ever told. We are about to journey across 35 timeless legends of the cosmic divine, from every corner of the ancient and medieval world. By the end, you will understand how our ancestors saw the entire universe as a living, breathing drama of gods and monsters. We will see a world tree that holds 9 realms in its branches and meet a sun god who battles a serpent of chaos every single night. How did a simple stone come to promise eternal life? And why did an entire city vanish beneath the waves for a single sin? These are not just tales, they are the blueprints of reality as our forebears knew it. What does it say about us that we once believed the sky itself could be woven from song? Our story begins not in a forest or on a mountain, but in the space between 2 great rivers. In the land of Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, the first astronomers and priests looked upward and saw a kingdom. They did not see random stars. They saw a divine bureaucracy, a celestial government ruling over every aspect of existence. At the very top of this hierarchy sat the original cosmic triad, 3 brothers who divided the universe between them. First was Anu, the Sky Father. He was not merely a god who lived in the sky, he was the sky. The vast, star-studded dome arching over the world was his very body, his presence. As the king of the gods, he represented ultimate authority, a distant and majestic power concerned with the grand laws of the cosmos rather than the day-to-day troubles of humanity. Below him, ruling the realm humanity actually inhabited, was Enlil, the lord of the wind and earth. If Anu was the king, Enlil was the prime minister, the executive power. He held the tablets of destiny, clay tablets upon which the fates of all things were written. With a breath, he could summon the life-giving winds that made the crops grow. With a storm, he could unleash devastating floods that wiped cities from the map. He was the terrifying and necessary force of order, the power that both sustained and could destroy civilization with a single decree. Then there was the third brother, E, also known as Enki. His domain was not above but below. He was the god of the Abzu, the vast, sweet freshwater ocean that was believed to exist beneath the earth. From this abyss sprang all rivers, wells, and the very source of life. E was the clever one, the god of wisdom, magic, and craft. He was the patron of artisans and the subtle fixer of problems. Most famously, when the gods grew tired of their labors, it was E who devised the plan to create humanity from clay mixed with the blood of a slain god, so that humans could serve the divine. So here was the entire Mesopotamian cosmos in 3 figures. Anu was the heaven, the overarching law. Enlil was the earth and atmosphere, the active force of authority. E was the watery deep, the source of wisdom and life itself. This was not a simple family drama. It was a cosmic operating system, a way of understanding how the world functioned from the highest heaven to the deepest spring. Every gust of wind, every flood, every stroke of genius was a sign that this divine council was in session. Yet this Mesopotamian vision of a static, bureaucratic heaven was not the only way to see the cosmos. Far to the west, along the life-giving Nile, an entirely different drama unfolded each and every day. For the ancient Egyptians, the universe was not a fixed kingdom, but a perilous, repeating journey. The sun did not simply hang in the sky, it sailed. Each dawn, the sun god Ra was born anew, ascending into the sky in a magnificent vessel known as the Manjet, the day barque. This was no ordinary boat. It was a celestial ship of immense power, crewed by a host of lesser gods. Thoth, the god of wisdom, might be at the helm. Maat, the goddess of cosmic order and truth, stood at the prow. As this divine flotilla moved from east to west, its light was not merely illumination. It was the very energy of life, law, and creation pouring over the world. Pharaohs were believed to join this crew after death, spending eternity sailing with Ra in eternal daylight. But the day's journey was only half the story. What happened when the bark dipped below the western horizon was the true heart of the mystery. Ra did not rest. He entered the Duat, the terrifying and labyrinthine underworld, switching to a second ship called the Mesopotamian, the night barque. For the next 12 hours, this vessel navigated a river through a land of demons, lakes of fire, and gates guarded by fearsome deities. The entire journey was a constant battle for survival, because waiting in the darkness was Apep, the colossal serpent of pure chaos. Apep embodied Isfet, the force of disorder, decay, and non-existence. His sole purpose was to stop the sun bark, to devour Ra and plunge the world into eternal night. Every night, a cosmic war was fought. Ra and his defenders, including the warrior god Set, would battle the serpent with spears of light and powerful magic. The coils of Apep would try to crush the boat, or he would drink the river dry to strand it. This was not a one-time myth. It was a nightly event upon which all of reality depended. The Egyptians believed that if the rituals here on Earth were neglected, if the prayers and offerings to assist Ra ceased, Apep could win. This is where the pharaoh's most sacred duty came into play. As the living son of Ra on Earth, the pharaoh was not just a political ruler. He was the chief priest of the cosmos. Through daily temple rituals, offerings, and incantations, he actively participated in Ra's struggle. He helped repel Apep, he helped steer the bark. His actions on Earth directly influenced the outcome in the Duat. When the people saw the sun rise each morning, it was not just a natural phenomenon. It was proof that their pharaoh had done his job, that Maat had once again triumphed over Isfet. The entire cycle was the ultimate metaphor. Dawn was birth, midday was peak power, sunset was death, and the successful night voyage was rebirth. Life, death, and resurrection were woven into the fabric of the sky itself, a daily promise that order could and must always defeat chaos. But what happens when the cosmic order itself becomes a tyrant? While the Egyptians saw a daily battle between order and chaos, another civilization envisioned a far more violent birth for their universe. Before the gods of Mount Olympus, with their human-like passions and dramas, there existed a far older and more terrifying pantheon. These were the Titans, primordial beings of raw, elemental power. Their story begins not with a gentle creation, but with a brutal act of rebellion that set the pattern for all divine conflict to come. In the beginning, according to the Greek poets, there was only chaos, a yawning void. From it emerged Gaia, the earth, solid and vast. She then gave birth to Ouronos, the starry sky, who lay upon her completely, covering her. Together, they produced the first generation of gods, the Titans, but Ouronos was a cruel and jealous father. He hated his children, the Hecatoncheires with their 100 arms, and the one-eyed Cyclopes. As soon as they were born, he forced them back into the dark womb of the earth, imprisoning them deep within Gaia's body. This caused Gaia immense pain and rage. She fashioned a great, jagged sickle of adamant and appealed to her children for a champion. Only the youngest Titan, Kronos, had the cunning and ambition to answer. He lay in wait, and when Ouronos next descended to embrace Gaia, Kronos struck. He castrated his own father with the sickle, severing the sky from the earth forever. This act of cosmic violence freed the imprisoned monsters and established Kronos as the new ruler. But as the blood of Ouronos fell upon the earth, it gave birth to the Furies, spirits of vengeance, and the giants. The prophecy was born with the act, for Ouronos, as he was deposed, cursed his son, foretelling that Kronos too would be overthrown by his own child. This curse haunted the new king of the Titans. Paranoid, Kronos married his sister Re, and each time she bore a child, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, he swallowed them whole, trapping them within his stomach to prevent the prophecy. But when Re bore her sixth child, Zeus, she could bear it no longer. She deceived Kronos, giving him a stone wrapped in swaddling clothes to swallow instead, and hid the infant Zeus in a cave on Crete, guarded by mythical beings. There, the future king of the gods grew strong. When he came of age with the help of the Titanus Metis, he tricked his father into drinking a potion that caused him to disgorge all his swallowed siblings, now fully grown. With his brothers and sisters freed, Zeus rallied them and declared war. This was the Titanomachy, a war that shook the cosmos for 10 years. Zeus freed the monstrous Hecatoncheires and Cyclopes from Tartarus, and they forged his iconic weapons, the thunderbolt, the trident, the helmet of invisibility. The battle was cataclysmic, with mountains thrown as weapons and the very earth trembling. Finally, the Olympians prevailed. They cast the defeated Titans down into the deepest pit of the underworld, Tartarus, and placed the 100-armed Hecatoncheires as their eternal guards. This was more than a simple change of management. It marked the violent transition from an old, impersonal, and brutal cosmic order, ruled by beings of sheer force, to a new one. The Olympians represented a different kind of power, one intertwined with intelligence, strategy, law, and even a semblance of justice. The war established the hierarchy we recognize, with Zeus as the king presiding from Mount Olympus. Yet the memory of those raw, primeval forces, the Titans, remained buried but never entirely gone, a reminder of the chaotic foundations upon which their polished world was built. The violent birth of the Greek cosmos established a hierarchy, but it was a hierarchy of separate realms. The Norse vision was profoundly different. They saw not a divided universe, but a single, immense living organism. At the center of everything stood Yggdrasil, the World Tree, a colossal ash whose branches stretched beyond the heavens and whose roots delved into the deepest wells of wisdom and decay. This was not a metaphor. To the Norse mind, this tree was the literal axis of existence, a living scaffold upon which all 9 realms were hung like strange fruit. High in its upper branches gleamed Asgard, the walled citadel of the Aesir gods, a realm of shining halls like Valhalla. Directly in the trunk, connected to the tree, was Midgard, our own world, encircled by a vast ocean. Down among the lower roots lay Jotunheim, the harsh, frozen land of the giants, the eternal enemies of the gods. But these are just 3. The other realms were equally vivid, from the dark, misty world of the dwarves, master smiths in their forges, to the luminous realm of the elves, to the fiery domain of the fire giants. All coexisted, suspended in the same vast tree, connected by the Bifrost, the trembling rainbow bridge. Yggdrasil itself teemed with life, a microcosm of the cosmic struggle. At the very top of the canopy perched a nameless, all-seeing eagle. Deep below, coiled around one of the 3 great roots, the monstrous dragon Nidhogg endlessly gnawed, chewing on the root itself, dripping venom and striving to bring the whole tree down. And between these 2 eternal adversaries, up and down the immense trunk, raced the squirrel Ratatoska. He was not a noble messenger, but a malicious gossip. He would carry the insults shouted by the eagle at the top down to Nidhogg at the roots, and then deliver the dragon's furious replies back upward, forever fanning the flames of hatred between the highest and lowest beings. This was a cosmos alive with tension, a system in constant, fragile balance. The gods in Asgard were not all-powerful rulers. They were dwellers in one branch, constantly under threat from the giants in another, aware that a dragon was slowly eating the foundation of their world. The tree itself suffered. It was said that a great stag fed on its leaves and a herd of goats nibbled its bark. It trembled eternally. This interconnectedness made the Norse universe breathtakingly beautiful and terrifyingly precarious. Every realm's fate was tied to the health of the tree, and the tree was under perpetual assault. This is why their mythology culminates not in eternal rule, but in Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. It was the inevitable destiny of such a stressed system, a final winter and a world-consuming fire where the tree itself would shudder and burn. The Norse saw the cosmos not as a kingdom to be ruled, but as a magnificent, suffering living thing whose end was written into its very roots. Yet this vision of a cosmos locked in a slow, terminal decay is not the only way to confront chaos. In the lush, vibrant world of ancient India, a different kind of struggle unfolds, one where gods and demons do not merely battle for dominance, but engage in a strange, cooperative competition to unlock the universe's deepest secrets. This is the legend of the churning of the ocean of milk, a cosmic event of breathtaking scale and profound symbolism. The story begins with the Devas, the gods of order and light, weakened and mortal. They had been cursed with mortality and sought a way to reclaim their immortality. The answer lay in the Amrita, the nectar of eternal life, but it was hidden deep within the primordial ocean of milk, a vast cosmic sea of potential. To retrieve it, they needed to churn the entire ocean, but this was an impossible task for them alone. So, in a moment of pragmatic, uneasy alliance, they approached their eternal enemies, the Asuras, the demons of chaos and power. Together, they hatched an audacious plan. They uprooted the massive mountain Mandara to use as a churning rod. They persuaded Vasuki, the king of the serpent gods, to coil himself around the mountain to serve as the churning rope. The Devas took hold of Vasuki's tail and the Asuras took his head. Then, with the mountain poised on the back of the great turtle Kurma, an avatar of the god Vishnu, they began to pull. Back and forth in a titanic tug of war, the two opposing forces worked together. This was not a gentle stirring, it was a violent, universe-shaking effort. And as they churned, the ocean began to yield its treasures, but not in the order they might have hoped. First came a deadly poison, halahala, so toxic it threatened to consume all creation. The world began to burn. In desperation, the gods turned to Shiva, the great ascetic, to save existence. Shiva gathered the poison and drank it, holding it in his throat, which turned blue, earning him the name Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. Only after this act of supreme sacrifice did the ocean begin to yield its wonders. From the frothing depths emerged Kamadhenu, the wish-fulfilling cow. Then came Airavata, the magnificent white elephant who would become the mount of Indra, king of the gods. The goddess of wine emerged, followed by the moon which Shiva placed in his hair. Apsaras, celestial dancers, and Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune and beauty, arose, choosing Vishnu as her consort. Finally, after what seemed an eternity of labor, Dhanvantari, the physician of the gods, appeared holding the pot of Amrita. The moment of cooperation shattered instantly. A fierce battle erupted over the nectar. It was then that Vishnu, in the form of the enchanting Mohini, distracted the Asuras and ensured the Devas drank the Amrita, restoring their immortality and tipping the cosmic balance back toward order. This story is far more than a fantastical tale. It is a complete allegory for the spiritual journey. The ocean of milk is the mind or the universe itself, full of both poison and nectar. The churning is the difficult, often painful work of discipline, meditation, and self-reflection. The Devas and Asuras represent the internal forces of light and darkness, order and desire that must both be engaged in the process. You cannot achieve enlightenment by suppressing your demons, the story suggests. You must use that energy, that raw power, and direct it toward a higher purpose. The treasures that emerge first are the poisons, the ego, the attachments, the fears that must be confronted and transformed, just as Shiva transformed the poison. Only after that ordeal do the true blessings appear: wisdom, prosperity, beauty, and finally, the immortality of spiritual liberation. The churning never truly ends. It is the eternal work of existence, pulling meaning from chaos, one profound turn at a time. While the gods of India churned the ocean for immortality, another civilization saw the very origins of humanity forged in a dark, subterranean game of survival. Deep within the rainforests of Mesoamerica, the Maya told a story of creation that was not handed down by distant sky gods, but won through cunning and sacrifice in the realm of the dead. This is the story of the hero twins Hunahpu and Expalank from the sacred book known as the Popol Vuh. Their tale begins not with them but with a failure. Their father and uncle, also named Hunahpu, were great ball players whose noisy game in the court above disturbed the lords of Xibalba, the Mayan underworld. Annoyed, the Death Lord sent an invitation disguised as an honor for the brothers to come play ball in their magnificent courts below. It was a trap. The moment they descended the steep, treacherous stairs into Xibalba, they were tested. The lords had placed decoys, carved mannequins on thrones, and when the brothers greeted them as if they were real, they were met with roaring laughter from the true lords hiding in the shadows. This failure marked them as fools. Then came the deadly hospitality. The brothers were given a bench to sit on, but it was a heated stone burning them. They were offered torches and cigars, but commanded to keep them lit all night without being consumed. They failed every test. For their failure, the Death Lord sacrificed them, burying their bodies in the ball court, but placing the head of the elder Hunahpu in a barren calabash tree as a warning. From this tree of death, however, sprang life. A daughter of a Death Lord, drawn by the strange fruit, visited the tree. The skull spoke to her, and from its spittle, she became pregnant with the twins who would become the true heroes. This is the first great theme of the story, that life and genius are born directly from the realm of death. Raised by their grandmother, Hunahpu and Xbalanque grew to be exceptional hunters and ball players just like their father. And when they discovered his old ball game equipment, they too began to play, once again disturbing the lords below. The same invitation was sent, but these twins were different. They were prepared. Before descending, they made careful plans. They instructed a pair of animals to mourn for them on the surface, creating a link to the world above. When they entered Xibalba, they saw through the decoy lords immediately. When offered the hot stone bench, they politely declined, saying it was merely a cooking stone for commoners. When given the torches and cigars, they attached red feathers to them, making the lords believe they were burning when they were not, cleverly conserving them. They passed every initial test. Frustrated, the Death Lords then threw them into a series of deadly houses, each a chamber of pure terror. The House of Gloom was pitch black, a void of absolute darkness. The twins survived by using fireflies to create light. The House of Knives was filled with shifting, razor-sharp blades. They navigated it by convincing the knives to stop their motion. The House of Cold brought a killing frost, which they endured by huddling together. The House of Jaguars was filled with hungry beasts. They threw bones to distract them. The House of Fire was an inferno, which they simply walked through unscathed. Finally, they were sent to the most terrifying of all, the House of Bats, filled with deadly, blade-nosed creatures. Here, Hunahpu made his only mistake. Peeking out of his hiding place at dawn, his head was instantly severed by a swooping bat. The lords of Xibalba were overjoyed. They took his head to use as the new ball in their game. But Xbalanque, through incredible ingenuity, carved a new head for his brother from a squash, and in the middle of the ball game, managed to swap it back, restoring Hunahpu to life. Having survived the impossible, the twins then turned the tables completely. They allowed themselves to be sacrificed and burned in a great oven by the delighted Death Lords. But from the ashes, they reappeared days later as miraculous wandering dancers and magicians performing impossible feats. They could burn houses and restore them, sacrifice each other and bring one another back to life. Intrigued and arrogant, the lords of Xibalba demanded to see the ultimate trick. "Sacrifice one of us," they said, "and bring us back to life." The twins agreed. They sacrificed a lord, but then simply left him dead. In that moment of revealed truth, the balance of power shattered. The twins declared their true identities as the avengers of their father. They did not destroy all the lords of Xibalba, but they defeated their power. They stripped the highest lords of their authority and condemned them to a future where they could only receive offerings of broken and worthless things. They rescued their father's remains and ascended to the sky, where they became the sun and the moon. Their victory in the deepest darkness made the dawn of our world possible. Because of their triumph, the stage was finally set for the gods to create true humans, not from clay or blood, but from something far more sacred, maize. Our very flesh in this story is made from the substance of the sustaining earth, born from a victory won in the land of the dead. Our existence is the prize from the greatest game ever played. The Maya saw our world as a prize won from the underworld, but what if the land itself was not won but sung into being? Across the vast, ancient continent of Australia, Aboriginal cultures hold a vision of creation so profound it defies the very concept of a distant past. They speak of the dreamtime or the dreaming. This is not a time that came and went. It is the eternal, sacred dimension of beginnings, a continuous reality that exists alongside our own. In that epoch, the world was a flat, silent, and featureless plain. Then came the sky heroes, the great ancestral beings. They emerged from the earth, from the sky, from the sea itself, and they began their epic journeys. They walked, they crawled, they flew, and as they moved, they did not merely discover the landscape, they created it. Their very actions sang the world into solid form. A being would kneel to rest, and the impression of its knees became a mountain range. It would drag a spear, and the groove became a river valley. Where it stopped to camp, a waterhole bubbled up. The land is their living storybook, written not in words, but in stone, water, and wind. One of the most powerful of these creator beings is the rainbow serpent. Known by many names across many nations, this immense serpentine spirit is the ultimate life force. In the beginning, it slept beneath the flat earth. When it awoke, it pushed upward, heaving and shaping the mountains and ridges as it rose. It then began its travels, slithering across the continent. Its powerful body carved out the great riverbeds and gorges. Where it coiled to rest, it created deep, permanent waterholes, the vital sources of life in a dry land. When it moved on, it left behind not just physical scars on the land, but sacred lore. The rainbow serpent is both creator and guardian, a being of immense fertility and fearsome power, reminding all that the water sources are not resources to be owned, but living connections to the dreaming itself. In the southwest, the Noongar people speak of the Wadjil, another great serpentine creator. As the Wadjil traveled, its body shaped the Swan River and the contours of the land. Where it shed its skin, the scales became the Jarrah forests, its breath became the morning mist. These stories are not myths in the sense of simple fables. They are living maps of lore, identity, and responsibility. A songline is the pathway a sky hero walked, and by learning the songs and stories of that path, an initiated person could navigate hundreds of miles across the desert, using the landscape as a mnemonic device. Each rock, each waterhole, each unusual tree is a stanza in an epic poem of creation. To know the song is to know the land, and to know the land is to know your place within it. The dreaming is not locked in a past era. It is now and always. When an elder points to a particular rock formation and tells the story of the ancestor who left it there, they are not recounting history, they are reactivating the connection. They are reminding the land and the people of the sacred moment of its creation, reinforcing the laws that were established then. Every mountain holds the memory of a divine act. Every river flows with the song of its beginning. In this vision, the cosmos is not a machine or a kingdom, but a living, breathing narrative, and humanity's role is to walk carefully within the story, singing it anew with each generation to keep the world alive. The dreaming sings a world into being from within, but other traditions saw creation as a work of divine artistry, shaped from the outside by a master craftsman. In the deep forests and across the great plains of ancient Slavic lands, storytellers spoke of a beginning not of gods at war, but of a quiet, profound emergence from a single, perfect vessel. Their universe began in the endless, dark waters of chaos, a formless and silent sea. There was no sky, no earth, only this potential waiting, and from this primordial deep, something miraculous coalesced, a single point of concentrated possibility. It was a golden cosmic egg glowing with its own inner light, adrift on the dark waters. Inside this shell slept not a bird, but the essence of all that would be the god Rod. Rod was the source, the progenitor, the very principle of ancestry and origin itself. He was the universe in potential, the seed containing the tree. And when the time was right, the egg hatched. From it burst forth the first active creator, Svarog. If Rod was the source, Svarog was the maker. He was the celestial blacksmith, the divine artisan. Imagine the scene not as a violent explosion, but as the opening of a sacred workshop. Svarog, born into the still dark chaos, set to work. He took up a great hammer and found a celestial anvil. His first and greatest act was one of supreme craftsmanship. He forged the sun. With mighty, measured blows, he hammered a sphere of searing light and warmth and set it on a path across the dome of the sky he was creating. Then, from the same celestial fire and metal, he hammered out the stars, pinning them into the firmament like countless silver nails. Each strike of his hammer was not just an act of making, it was an act of law-giving. The light brought vision and order to the formless dark. The predictable path of the sun established time, the cycles of day and night, summer and winter. This established Pravda, a concept far deeper than simple truth. Pravda was cosmic order, divine justice, the proper and righteous way of the universe. It was the law Svarog built into the very fabric of his creation with every hammer fall. He did not command this order, he crafted it like a master smith, ensuring the integrity of a perfect blade. Later myths say he continued his work, forging tools for humanity and establishing the first laws of marriage and family, extending that celestial order down to the human realm. So while other pantheons fought battles or performed magic, the Slavic vision presents creation as the ultimate act of skilled, deliberate making. The cosmos is not a kingdom or a living tree, but a magnificent artifact wrought by divine hands, its very structure imbued with the principles of harmony and rightness. The sun is not a god in a chariot, it is the first and finest creation of the heavenly smith, a testament to the power of crafted order over raw, watery chaos. The sound of a celestial hammer shaping the sun is a powerful act of making, but creation can also be a quieter, more intimate kind of stirring. Before the islands of Japan existed, there was only a formless, oily sea drifting between heaven and earth. This was the primordial chaos, a silent, floating potential. From this, the very first kami, the divine spirits of Shinto, came into being. Among them were two of the most important, a brother and sister named Izanagi, the male who invites, and Izanami, the female who invites. They stood together on the floating bridge of heaven, a boundary between the pure celestial realm of Takamagahara above and the murky brine below. The heavenly gods charged them with a sacred task to give solid form to the land beneath. To do this, they were given a magnificent spear decorated with jewels called Aim Nonuboko. Leaning from the bridge, Izanagi and Izanami dipped the spear's tip into the endless ocean and began to stir. They churned the waters, and when they lifted the spear, the brine that dripped from its tip coagulated and thickened. Those falling drops did not dissolve back into the sea. They piled up, becoming the first island, a self-forming land called Onogoro, meaning the congealing island. This was not a violent act of separation, like the Greek sky being severed from the earth. It was a gentle coaxing, a stirring that brought solidity from liquid, order from soup. The two deities then descended from the bridge to their new island. They erected a great pillar, the heavenly pillar, and built a palace around it. Recognizing their difference, they decided to unite to give birth to the lands. They performed a marriage ritual, circling the pillar from opposite directions. When they met, Izanami, the female, spoke first, saying, "What a fine young man." They joined, but their first offspring was a deformed leech child, which they set adrift in a reed boat. Consulting the higher gods, they learned the flaw was in the ritual, for the woman had spoken before the man. So they circled the pillar again, and this time when they met, Izanagi spoke first, saying, "What a fine young woman." Their union was then fruitful. From them were born the 8 great islands of Japan, one after another, the very bones of the nation. But their creation did not stop with geography. Izanami then gave birth to the myriad kami, the spirits of all natural phenomena, the gods of the wind, the mountains, the trees, the rivers, and the plains. Every waterfall, every ancient stone, every grove of trees in Japan is inhabited by a kami born from this divine couple. However, in giving birth to the fire god, Kagetsuchi, Izanami was terribly burned and descended to the land of the dead, Yomi. A grief-stricken Izanagi pursued her, but what he found in the darkness was a horrifying transformation, and he was forced to flee, sealing the entrance with a great stone. This separation of the living world from the realm of decay was the final act of shaping the cosmic order. After purifying himself from the contamination of death, Izanagi, washing his left eye, gave birth to the sun goddess Amaterasu. Washing his right eye, he gave birth to the moon god Tsukuyomi, and from washing his nose came the storm god Susanoo. These 3 would become the most powerful celestial kami, with Amaterasu, enshrined at eyes, becoming the divine ancestor of the Japanese imperial line. So this entire legend weaves a sacred tapestry where there is no separation between the land, its natural features, and the divine. The islands are the children of the gods. The spirits in the rocks and trees are their grandchildren. The emperor is a direct descendant of the sun. Takamagahara is not a distant Olympus, but a heavenly plane intimately connected to the earthly realm, with the floating bridge of heaven serving as the permeable membrane between them. To stand in an ancient Shinto shrine surrounded by forest is to stand in the very moment of that stirring, where every drop of water and every leaf remembers its divine birth. Yet this intimate connection between the divine and the land was not unique to Japan. In the misty hills and deep forests of the ancient Celtic world, the gods were not distant figures in the sky, but lived just next door in a parallel realm of impossible beauty. This was the otherworld, known by many names: Annwn in Wales, Tyrna and Og in Ireland, a land of perpetual youth, feasting, and magic that existed alongside our own mortal plane. It was not a heaven for the dead, nor a hell for the damned. It was a realm of the ever-living, the Shia, the people of the mounds, who were the gods and spirits of the land grown older and more mysterious. Time flowed differently there. A feast that lasted 3 days in the otherworld might see 300 years pass in the mortal world. Its entrance was not in the stars, but in the very earth, hidden in the landscape the Celts walked every day. A traveler might cross into it by stepping into a sudden bank of enchanted mist, or by sailing west over the sea until the familiar shores faded into a haze of wonder. Most often, the doorway was an ancient burial mound, a shia, those grassy, rounded hills that dotted the countryside. These were not mere graves, they were the palaces of the otherworldly lords and ladies, the thresholds between realities. To enter one was to risk being captivated forever, for the otherworld's beauty was a potent and dangerous lure. Its orchards bore fruit year-round, its pigs were always ready for slaughter and magically regenerated the next day, and its cauldrons provided endless nourishment. This reflected a deep Celtic belief that the divine was not separate from nature, but its very essence, a layer of enchantment woven directly into the fabric of hill, lake, and forest. But how could a mortal, not chosen by fate or blood, hope to cross that threshold safely? The answer lies in one of the most potent symbols of Celtic myth, the silver branch. This was no ordinary piece of wood. It was a talisman of supreme artistry and power, a branch from a magical apple tree, often with silver leaves and golden apples, or sometimes with bells made of precious metal. It was carried by poets, seers, and messengers who moved between the worlds. When shaken, it did not make a simple noise. It produced a music so enchantingly beautiful, so profoundly sorrowful and sweet, that it could soothe all strife, heal sickness, and even put listeners into a deep trance-like sleep. This music was the key. Its otherworldly harmony acted as a passport, a resonant frequency that vibrated in tune with the realm of the Shia. By sounding this music, the bearer could pacify guardians, open sealed gates in the hillside, or calm the turbulent seas that separated the worlds. The silver branch was more than a tool, it was a symbol of the poet's sacred function. In Celtic society, the poet, the Fili, held immense power. His words could satirize a king into exile or bring prosperity to a tribe. The silver branch represented that power distilled into an object. It signified that true poetry, true art, was not merely a human craft, but a force drawn from the otherworld itself. To create great art was to shake the silver branch, to channel that unearthly music into the mortal realm, momentarily blurring the lines between them. It was an acknowledgement that inspiration was a form of divine contact. So the Celtic cosmos was a delicate tapestry of two worlds existing in the same space. Our reality was the dull warp, and the other world was the brilliant, shimmering weft woven through it. Heroes did not ascend to the gods, they walked sideways into them, through a door in a hill, guided by a branch that sang. This worldview suggests that magic and the divine were always present, just slightly out of phase, waiting to be perceived by those with the right song, the right ritual, or the destined heart. The Celtic otherworld shimmered just beyond sight, a promise of eternal feasts, but other civilizations saw the cosmos not as a parallel paradise, but as a brutal engine constantly on the verge of breaking down. For the Nahua peoples, including the Aztecs, the universe was a story of repeated, catastrophic endings. They believed we do not live in the first world, but the fifth. Each age was called a sun, a complete cosmic era ruled by a different divine force and populated by a different kind of being, and each one met a violent, total end. The first age was the sun of earth, ruled by the god Tezcatlipoca. The beings of this time were giants who subsisted on pine nuts. This world did not last. It was utterly destroyed when Tezcatlipoca, in his jaguar form, summoned monstrous jaguars from the sky who devoured every single giant. The second age, the sun of wind, was ruled by Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. The people of this era were transformed into humans, but they were swept away by catastrophic hurricanes that scraped the very surface of the earth clean, scattering the survivors who became monkeys clinging to the trees. The third sun was the sun of rain of fire, presided over by the rain god Tlaloc. Its people ate a seed called Sinakakopi. This world ended in a rain not of water, but of molten rock, a global volcanic eruption that set the sky itself on fire and consumed everything in flame. The survivors, it was said, turned into butterflies and birds. Then came the fourth sun, the sun of water, governed by Tlaloc's consort, Chalchutlicu, the goddess of rivers and lakes. This era ended in a great flood that lasted 52 years. The sky collapsed onto the earth and the people were transformed into fish. After each cataclysm, the world was left in absolute darkness. The gods gathered in the sacred city of Teotihuacan, not as omnipotent creators, but as desperate engineers facing a failed project. The creation of a new sun required the ultimate fuel, divine self-immolation. To bring forth our current sun, the fifth sun, two gods volunteered for the sacrifice. The proud and wealthy Tecusistecatl offered himself, but when the moment came to leap into the divine bonfire, he hesitated 4 times, frozen by fear. Then the humble, diseased god Nanahuatzin, covered in sores, gathered his courage and threw himself into the flames without a second thought. Shamed, Tecusistecatl followed. From the ashes, 2 suns rose, but they were motionless, blindingly bright. The other gods realized one had to be dimmed. One threw a rabbit at the face of Tecusistecatl, scarring his brilliance and turning him into the moon. Nanahuatzin became our sun, the sun of movement, called Nahui Olan, but there was a terrible problem. The newborn sun hung motionless in the sky. To set it on its daily journey, to give the world motion and time, the remaining gods had to offer their own life force. The wind god Ehecatl, an aspect of Quetzalcoatl, sacrificed them all, blowing the sun into its first arc across the heavens. This established the terrifying, non-negotiable contract of the Aztec cosmos. The sun was not a self-sustaining celestial body. It was a wounded, struggling god, born from sacrifice and kept alive only by a continuous input of sacred energy, of tonally, the animating force found in blood. If that energy stopped, the sun would halt, and the world would be plunged into permanent night, ending in the prophesied final cataclysm for the fifth sun, destruction by earthquake. Human sacrifice, then, was not mere bloodlust or political terror, though it could be used as such. On a cosmic level, it was the essential duty of all humanity. By offering the tonally in human blood, people were repaying the debt owed to the gods who sacrificed themselves. They were feeding the sun, literally nourishing Natia, the sun god, to give him strength for his daily battle across the sky. Warriors who died in battle or on the stone were not killed. They were given the high honor of becoming companions of the sun, their life energy transferred directly to the cosmic engine. This was a universe running on a kind of sacred debt, where life could only continue through the deliberate, ritualized return of life's essence to its source. The entire civilization saw itself as custodians of a fragile, fifth attempt at existence, holding back the inevitable earthquake with every beat of a ritual drum and every offering made atop the Templo Maya. While the Aztec sun required constant sacrifice to move, a different kind of cosmic labor was required to create a stable world in the first place. In ancient China, before the familiar cycles of yin and yang, there existed only a formless, swirling chaos, a unity known as Handan. This primordial mist contained all potential, but no distinction, no separation, no life. Within that chaos, over the course of 18,000 years, the lighter, purer elements slowly coalesced to become yang, the masculine, active force, while the heavier, murkier elements settled into yin, the feminine, receptive force. These two principles swirled together, forming a great cosmic egg. Inside that egg, nurtured by the essence of yin and yang, the first being came to life. His name was Pangu. For another 18,000 years, he slept and grew within that shell, until he had attained the size and strength of a true cosmic giant. Finally, he awoke. Finding himself in darkness and confinement, he stretched his limbs. With a mighty heave, the great egg shattered. The lighter, luminous elements of yang, now freed, began to float upward. The heavier, turbid elements of yin began to sink downward. Pangu, standing in the middle, realized with horror that these two halves were beginning to rush back together, threatening to return to the original, lifeless chaos. So he planted his feet on the sinking yin, the earth, and pushed his hands upward against the rising yang, the sky, and there he stood, a living pillar between heaven and earth. Each day, the sky rose 10 feet higher, and the earth grew 10 feet thicker, and Pangu himself grew 10 feet taller to keep them apart. This titanic effort lasted for another 18,000 years. Only when the heavens were impossibly high and the earth was solidly deep, firmly fixed in their separate places, did Pangu finally rest. His labor was complete, but it had consumed him utterly. The giant collapsed, dying from the exhaustion of his cosmic task. Yet his death was not an end, but the most profound beginning. His body did not decay, it transformed. Every part of him became a feature of the new world. His breath sighed out and became the wind and the drifting clouds. His voice, as it left him, became the rolling thunder. His left eye, bright and gentle, rose to become the moon. His right eye, fierce and brilliant, ascended to become the sun. The flesh of his limbs and torso sank into the earth and became the great mountain ranges, the bones becoming the veins of precious stones and metal deep below. His blood flowed out, spreading across the land to form the great rivers and oceans. His sweat fell as the nourishing rain and morning dew. The hair from his head and beard scattered across the sky to become the stars and the Milky Way. and the fleas and parasites that lived on his body were carried by the wind, becoming the first human beings. This is why, in this ancient philosophy, humanity and nature are not separate. We are all part of Pangu's sacred body, living on a world that is the literal flesh of a self-sacrificing god. The universe is not a machine or a kingdom, but a giant who gave his entire being so that order could exist. His labor established the fundamental duality of yin and yang, earth and sky, but his dissolution wove them back together into a single, living, interconnected whole. Pangu's body became the world, a cosmos born from a giant sacrifice. But for the great voyagers of Polynesia, the cosmos was not a finished creation. It was a dynamic relationship, one that could be argued with, outwitted, and even improved. Their stories are filled not with aloof creator gods, but with a brilliant, mischievous demigod named Moi. Across the vast ocean, from Hawaii to Aotearoa, New Zealand, to Tahiti and beyond, his adventures are told, a testament to cleverness over brute strength. Moi was a trickster, a shapeshifter, and a cultural hero who used his wits to perform impossible feats for the benefit of all people. He fished up islands from the deep sea with a magical hook. He discovered the secret of fire by tricking the mud hens who guarded it. But his most famous, most audacious act was an argument with the sky itself. In the early days, the sun raced across the heavens. Its journey was frantic, hurried. Days were painfully short. There was never enough time. Fishermen could barely get their canoes to the good grounds before the light faded. Farmers could not tend their gardens. Mothers struggled to finish their daily work. Life was a constant, losing race against the fleeing sun. Moi watched his people struggle, and he grew frustrated. This was not right. The sun's selfish speed was a hardship on everyone. So he conceived a plan so bold it seems unthinkable. He would catch the sun and force it to slow down. He gathered his brothers and told them of the journey. They were terrified. The sun was a divine being, its heat incinerating. To approach its rising place was madness. But Moi, with his irresistible confidence, persuaded them. Before they left, he needed the right tools. He took a powerful jawbone, a weapon of great mana or spiritual power, often said to be from an ancestor. Then he went to his sister and asked for her strongest cord. From her hair, she wove incredibly resilient ropes. With these sacred items, Moi and his reluctant brothers traveled through the night, eastward to the very edge of the world, to the pit where the sun, Tama Nui Te Ra, slept before its daily climb. They hid themselves and waited in the darkness. As the first searing rays began to creep over the lip of the pit, the brothers recoiled from the heat. But Moi stood firm. He lunged forward, throwing the ropes made from his sister's hair. He lassoed the sun's fierce rays, one after another, pulling them tight, anchoring the great burning god to the earth. The sun roared and struggled, blazing with terrible fury, trying to burn the ropes and scorch its captors, but the ropes woven from sacred hair held fast. Then Moi took the mighty jawbone. He did not seek to destroy the sun, but to negotiate. He struck the sun's face, not to kill it, but to humble it. He beat the sun until, exhausted and in pain, it finally yielded. What was the negotiation? Moi demanded a new bargain for humanity. The sun must travel more slowly across the sky. It must grant longer days so people could live, work, fish, and thrive. Beaten and bound, the sun agreed. From that day forward, the sun moved at its present leisurely pace. The days grew longer, the light lingered, and time became a gift rather than a scarcity. This story is a profound declaration of agency. It says the celestial order is not fixed and immutable. A clever being with courage and the right tools, tools of community, like his sister's hair, can reshape the very rhythms of the cosmos for the common good. The sun is not a distant, untouchable ball of gas. It is Tama Nui Te Ra, a person with whom one can argue, a force that can be reasoned with once you have the courage to catch its attention. Moi's argument with the sun reshaped time for his people, but what if the Creator God himself walked among you, teaching you everything you know, only to vanish with a promise? High in the Andes, where the air is thin and the mountains touch the sky, the Inca told a story of beginnings that centered not on a distant heaven, but on a specific, breathtakingly beautiful place, Lake Titicaca. After a great flood had scoured the world clean, the waters of this immense high-altitude lake began to stir. From its deep, sapphire depths emerged the supreme being, Viracocha, also known as Kon Tisai Viracocha, the ancient foundation of all things. He was not born of chaos or conflict, but simply appeared, full-formed and powerful, stepping onto the sacred shores of the island of the sun. His first acts were acts of cosmic ordering. He reached into the void and placed the sun, in Tai, into the sky to give light and warmth. He set the moon, Mama Killer, to rule the night. He scattered the stars across the darkness, creating the constellations that would guide travelers and mark the seasons. With the heavens arranged, he turned to the empty earth. His first attempt at creating life was ambitious. He fashioned a race of beings from great, heavy stones. These were the first humans, but they were giants, immense and powerful. Yet Viracocha was not satisfied. These stone giants were clumsy, perhaps disobedient, or simply did not fulfill his vision for the world. So, in a decisive act of unmaking, he sent a second great flood to wash them away, returning the slate to emptiness once more. His second attempt was more deliberate. This time he took smaller stones, carving them with greater care and intention. From these he created a new race of humans, the ancestors of all the peoples of the Andes. But Viracocha was not a creator who simply set things in motion and retreated. He became a wanderer, a teacher. He traveled across the harsh and magnificent landscape, often disguised as a humble, bearded old man in simple clothes. He walked from village to village, over mountain passes and through valleys, imparting the essential knowledge of civilization. He taught people how to live together in society, the principles of agriculture, the arts of weaving and building, and the sacred rituals needed to honor the earth and the sky. He gave them language, law, and a moral code. Every step he took was a lesson, implanting culture directly into the land itself. When his work was complete, his journey did not end at a mountain peak or a celestial chariot. He walked westward to the very edge of the continent. There, at the shore of the vast Pacific Ocean, he did not stop. He continued walking, stepping onto the waves as if they were solid ground, and moved across the endless water until he vanished from sight. As he departed, he left behind a profound and haunting promise that one day he would return. This legend is the bedrock of Inca identity. It establishes Lake Titicaca as the literal birthplace of the world and the Inca people as the direct descendants of those second, carefully carved stones. The Sapa Inca, the emperor, was considered the living son of the sun in Tai, and thus a direct link back to Viracocha's original creative act. The god's walking journey across the land mapped the sacred geography of the empire, and his promise of return fueled both reverence and, later, a tragic political hope when Spanish ships arrived from the west. This was a cosmos where the divine was not abstract, but a memory of a personal teacher who shaped the very fabric of daily life before walking away on the water, leaving his people to tend the world he had ordered and taught them to sustain. But the promise of a creator's return is a story of hope, of a world awaiting completion. Another ancient faith saw the universe not as a project to be finished, but as a war already raging, a war in which every human soul is a soldier. This is the Zoroastrian vision, one of the oldest and most influential dualistic cosmologies in history. At its heart is a cosmic duel of absolute clarity, a struggle between two primordial opposing forces. On one side stands Ahura Mazda, the wise lord. He is not merely a god of light, he is light itself, the embodiment of truth, order, justice, and creative goodness. He is a Sha, the cosmic principle of righteousness that structures reality. arrayed against him is Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit, also known as Ahriman. He is not the absence of light, but its active, malicious enemy. He is the embodiment of deceit, chaos, decay, and the lie, drudge. This is not a battle between brothers or a family squabble. It is the fundamental fracture in existence, a choice made at the dawn of time. According to the sacred texts, Ahura Mazda, in his omniscience, knew of Angra Mainyu's envious, destructive nature. He did not create his adversary, but he created a bounded material universe as the arena for their inevitable confrontation. He fashioned the world in a pure, perfect state, a fortress of Ashar. And Angra Mainyu, seeing this beautiful creation, attacked it out of spite, like a venomous serpent striking into a pristine garden. He poisoned the perfect fire, sullied the pure waters, brought death to the first bull, and introduced suffering, disease, and moral corruption into the fabric of life. The world we live in, therefore, is not the pure creation of Ahura Mazda, nor is it the kingdom of Angra Mainyu. It is the battlefield, a mingled realm where the forces of light and darkness are locked in a desperate cosmic struggle. And humanity is not a passive bystander in this war. We are the frontline troops. Every single person is born into this conflict and must choose a side. This choice is not made once in a grand declaration, but constantly, in every moment, through our fundamental orientation. It is expressed in our humata, haktu, huvashta, our good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. To think with compassion, to speak with honesty, to act with justice is to wield a weapon for Ahura Mazda. It strengthens the forces of Ashar in the world. To think with malice, to speak with deceit, to act with cruelty, is to supply ammunition to Angra Mainyu, furthering the cause of drudge, the lie. The physical world itself is part of this moral contest. Fire is not just a chemical reaction, it is a sacred symbol of Ahura Mazda's purity and truth, to be kept clean and honored. Water is to be kept free from pollution. The earth is to be cultivated, not despoiled. Environmental care is a theological duty, a way of repairing the damage wrought by the destructive spirit. This struggle, however, is not eternal. Zoroastrianism holds a powerful, linear view of time with a definitive end. The cosmos is moving toward a final victory, a great renovation called Frashokreti. At the end of time, a savior figure, the Saoshyant, will appear. The dead will be resurrected, and all of humanity, past and present, will face a final judgment. A river of molten metal will flow across the earth, a test of ultimate truth. For the righteous, those who aligned with Ashar, it will feel like warm milk, a cleansing bath. For the wicked, it will be the agony of their own lies made manifest. This ordeal will purge the last vestiges of Angra Mainyu's corruption from the world. The destructive spirit and all his works will be utterly annihilated, rendered forever impotent. The universe will then be restored to its original, perfect state, but now eternally fortified against any future attack. Time itself will cease, and an existence of flawless peace and truth will begin. So this legend presents a universe of profound moral gravity. There is no neutral ground. Our smallest actions are cosmic acts, votes cast in an election that will decide the fate of all creation. It is a story that places an immense responsibility on the human soul, charging us with nothing less than the duty to help the light win its final, inevitable war. The battlefield of cosmic dualism demands a clear choice, a stark alignment with light or darkness. But what happens when the divine will is not a call to arms, but a quiet test waiting for centuries in a forgotten churchyard? The mists of Celtic otherworlds and the stern morality of cosmic war slowly blended in medieval Europe, giving rise to a new kind of legend, one where sovereignty was not seized by conquest but revealed by a miracle. This is the story of the sword in the stone, the heart of the Arthurian cycle. After the death of King Uther Pendragon, Britain fell into a bitter, leaderless chaos. The nobles quarreled, lawlessness spread, and the land itself seemed to grieve. In this desperate hour, a mysterious sign appeared. In the churchyard of the greatest church in London, a large, square block of stone materialized, and embedded firmly within it was an anvil of steel. Thrust deep into that anvil was the blade of a magnificent sword. Etched in gold upon the stone were these words: "Whoso pulleth out this sword of this stone and anvil is rightwise king born of all England." This was not a challenge for the strongest knight, though many tried. It was a divine filter. The greatest lords and warriors of the realm at a Christmas tournament each took their turn. They wrapped their hands around the jeweled hilt, strained every muscle, and pulled. The sword did not budge. It remained as fixed as the roots of the world. They saw a weapon, but it was not a weapon. It was a covenant. The true king would not be the man with the most powerful army or the most noble bloodline, at least not by ordinary reckoning. He would be the one chosen by a higher power, marked by providence itself. The act of drawing the sword was not an exhibition of physical might, but a moment of recognition where the hidden order of the cosmos aligned with a single, destined individual. This idea that a ruler's authority comes directly from God is the doctrine of the divine right of kings, and here it was made mythic, tangible, and spectacular. The young Arthur, serving as a squire to his foster brother Sir Kay, had no thought of kingship. When Kay sent him back to their lodgings to fetch a replacement sword, Arthur found the doors locked. In his haste to complete his errand, he saw the sword in the churchyard, gleaming in the empty square. Without ceremony or struggle, he simply walked over, took the hilt, and drew it forth easily, as if it had been waiting for him alone. The ease of the act is the most powerful part of the magic. For everyone else, the sword was part of the stone. For Arthur, it was merely sheathed there. This moment perfectly merges the old Celtic world with the new Christian one. The sword is a gift from an otherworld, like the treasures of the Shia, but the otherworld is now heaven. The mandate is not from the lords of the mounds, but from God. Arthur's later connection to the Lady of the Lake, who gives him the sword Excalibur, reinforces this duality. Sovereignty flows from both the sacred feminine spirit of the land, the Celtic goddess in Christian guise, and the masculine authority of the Heavenly Father. Thus, the sword is more than a weapon. It is the visible proof of an invisible contract. It transforms a forgotten boy into a king because it shows that the cosmos itself has endorsed him. His right to rule is woven into the fabric of destiny, making rebellion not just treason, but a sin against the divine order. The legend answers a deep, medieval anxiety about power. How do you know who should rule? The answer lies in a sign that no human hand can fake, a test administered by the universe. The stone was the altar, the sword was the sacrament, and Arthur's effortless pull was the moment a nation's fractured identity was healed by a celestial hand. Arthur pulled the sword and proved his divine right to rule, but even a king anointed by heaven could not heal a deeper sickness in the world. The land itself began to sicken, a malaise known as the wasteland. Crops withered, springs dried up, and a profound spiritual exhaustion settled over the kingdom. The cause was a grievous wound, not in a person, but in the connection between the earthly and the divine. And the cure was not a sword, but a cup. This is the legend of the Holy Grail. In the simplest telling, it is the chalice used by Christ at the Last Supper, later used to catch his blood at the crucifixion. But in the tapestry of medieval romance, it became something far greater, a cosmic vessel. It was not just a relic of a past event, it was a living conduit of divine grace, a focal point where heaven's power poured directly into the flawed world of men. Its mere presence in a room brought a fragrance more wonderful than any spice, and it provided spiritual nourishment, materializing the food each person most desired. It healed not just bodies but souls, and by extension, the wounded land. The Grail did not reside in a castle for all to see. It was elusive, appearing only in visions and dreams, a shimmering goal at the end of a path only the most purified could walk. This is why the greatest knights of the Round Table, for all their strength and courage, failed in its quest. Lancelot, the greatest warrior, was tainted by his forbidden love for Guinevere. His vision of the Grail was a torment, a glimpse of divine light from which he was painfully barred. The quest demanded not martial excellence but spiritual perfection. It required a knight without stain. That knight was Galahad, the son of Lancelot, conceived for this very purpose and raised in innocence. For Galahad, the quest was not a search but a homecoming. He was the only one who could sit in the Siege Perilous, the empty seat at the Round Table reserved for the Grail Knight, because he was the only one whose soul would not be consumed by its holiness. His journey was less about overcoming monsters, though he did, and more about passing through increasingly refined states of being. He saw the Grail because his inner reality matched its divine frequency. In the climactic vision, Galahad, along with the pious boars and the virgin knight Percival, is taken to the mystical city of Sarras. There, in a ceremony beyond human understanding, he witnesses the Grail in its full glory, administered by a celestial king. He is offered a choice to take the Grail back to Arthur's realm, but he asks instead for the ultimate union, to die in this moment of perfect communion. His request is granted. As his soul leaves his body, a hand reaches down from heaven and draws the Grail back into the celestial realm, for the world is not yet worthy of its permanent presence. So what was the quest truly about? It was the search for the source. The wasteland was a cosmos fractured by human sin, a world where the channel of grace had been clogged. The Grail was the unclogging, the proof that the connection still existed. Its quest mapped the inner landscape of the human soul striving for divinity, showing that the ultimate adventure was not to conquer lands, but to purify one's own heart to the point where it could become a vessel itself. The Round Table's failure, save for three, was the story of humanity's struggle. We are all Lancelot, capable of glimpsing the divine, but too burdened by our earthly attachments to hold it. Galahad's success was the impossible ideal, a reminder that the cosmos aches for healing, and that healing begins with a single, spotless heart. The Grail was never just a cup. It was the promise that the fracture between heaven and earth could, for a moment, be sealed. The Grail was a vessel for divine grace, but what if the divine itself could be distilled into a substance you could hold in your hand? This was the ultimate dream of medieval alchemy, a practice far deeper than simple greed for gold. At its heart lay the pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary substance of unimaginable power. It was said this stone, or sometimes a red powder, could perform two miracles. First, it could transmute base metals like lead into perfect, incorruptible gold. Second, it could be dissolved into a liquid known as the elixir of life, granting the drinker perfect health and immortality. To the uninitiated, this sounds like a recipe for limitless wealth and endless years. But for the true alchemist, these were merely symbols, outward signs of a far greater cosmic achievement. The real quest was not for physical gold, but for spiritual gold. The entire art was a coded language, a divine science hidden in symbols of dragons, suns, moons, and strange chemical processes. The alchemist believed that at the beginning of time, all matter sprang from a single, perfect source, the prima materia, or first matter. Creation was a fall from this divine unity into the fragmented, impure world we see. The Philosopher's Stone was the key to reversing that fall, to restoring matter to its original, perfect state. The laboratory work was a sacred drama, a reenactment of cosmic creation and redemption. The process often began with the nigredo, the blackening, a stage of putrefaction and decay where the base material was dissolved and corrupted. This represented the death of the old, impure self, a descent into despair and spiritual darkness. From that blackness came the albedo, the whitening, a purification into a shining, white substance. This was the washing of the soul, the dawn of enlightenment. Finally, the rubedo, the reddening, produced the legendary red stone, the fusion of opposites into a perfected, radiant whole. This was the soul's union with the divine, the moment the alchemist himself became a perfected being, a microcosm in harmony with the macrocosm. So when an alchemist wrote of heating mercury and sulfur in a sealed vessel, he was also describing the marriage of the soul's feminine and masculine principles. The dragon eating its own tail was the cycle of eternal return, the Ouroboros. The goal was not a lump of mineral, but a state of being. To create the stone was to achieve gnosis, a direct experiential knowledge of God's creative principles. The alchemist's furnace was his chapel, his retort was an altar, and his patient years-long labor was a form of prayer. He sought to become an assistant to the divine, actively participating in the perfection of the cosmos, starting with his own soul and the metals on his bench. In this light, the legend of the Philosopher's Stone is one of the most ambitious cosmic legends of all. It proposes that the secrets of creation are not locked away in a distant heaven, but are woven into the very fabric of matter, waiting to be unlocked by anyone with the patience, purity, and wisdom to learn the language of the stars hidden in common things. While the alchemist sought to perfect the soul in stillness, other legends told of a force that could never be stilled, a torrent of spectral energy that tore across the heavens when the nights grew long and cold. Across the villages of medieval Europe, from the British Isles to the German forests, a shared terror gripped the winter darkness. It was the Wild Hunt. The sky itself would seem to crack open, not with lightning, but with a cacophony from beyond the grave. The sound began as a distant roar, a gale force wind with a voice. Then came the frantic, echoing baying of hounds, not earthly dogs, but creatures with eyes like glowing coals and breath like ice. Beneath that noise, the thunder of countless hooves pounded a rhythm on the clouds, and cutting through it all, the clear, mournful, and terrifying blast of a ghostly horn. To hear it was to freeze in dread, for the hunt was an omen of catastrophe. Its passing foretold the outbreak of war, the coming of a plague, or the death of a king. It was the sound of fate itself on the move. While many cultures had versions of this phantom cavalcade, its most potent origin lies in the north with Odin, the All-Father of the Norse. In his aspect as the one-eyed wanderer, he was also Woden, the leader of the dead. His mount was the eight-legged Sleipnir, the greatest of all horses, capable of galloping between the worlds. Behind him rode not living knights, but the Einherjar, the chosen warriors who had died in battle and were taken to Valhalla. Yet this was not their final reward parade. This was their eternal drill, their cosmic duty. On stormy winter nights, Odin would lead this ghostly host out from Asgard's gates, not to hunt game, but to sweep across the mortal sky, gathering the souls of those about to die. The hunt was a personification of the storm, but also something far deeper. It blurred the line between a natural weather event and a supernatural reckoning. The howling wind was the baying of the hounds, the thunder was the drumming of hooves. To witness it was to see the raw, animating force behind the terror of a winter gale, to understand that the chaos of the elements was commanded by a divine will. Odin, the god of wisdom, poetry, and war, was also the god of the frantic, ecstatic fury of the berserkers. The wild hunt channeled that same unrestrained, dangerous energy on a cosmic scale. It served as a chilling reminder that the divine was not always benevolent or orderly. Sometimes it was a furious, collecting force, a necessary purge that rode on the storm, reminding humanity that the barrier between the living and the heroic dead was thin, and that the gods could pass through it at will, trailing chaos and prophecy in their wake. The terror of the wild hunt was a reminder of divine fury, but it was not the only story written across the medieval sky. In the same darkened chambers where scholars pored over maps filled with sea monsters, another, far more hopeful legend took shape, a shimmering mirage of perfect Christian order in a world of chaos. This was the legend of Prester John. He was not a god, but a king, a priest, and a marvel. His letter, which began circulating in the 12th century, claimed to come from a ruler of immense piety and unimaginable wealth, a descendant of the three magi who presided over a vast empire in the distant, mysterious East. His kingdom was an earthly paradise, a divinely ordained utopia untouched by the corruption, war, and strife that plagued medieval Europe. In his lands there was no poverty, no crime, and no heresy. Pepper grew like weeds, gems littered the riverbeds, and a magical stone of virtue sat in his palace, radiating a light so pure it banished all lust and vice from anyone who beheld it. His realm contained the fountain of youth, whose waters restored vigor, and was protected by the legendary gates of Alexander, a great wall built by the ancient conqueror to imprison the savage tribes of Gog and Magog. Here, lions lay down with lambs, and 72 kings paid him tribute. This was not just a fairy tale. For centuries, popes and emperors believed it. They sent emissaries eastward, searching for this powerful Christian ally who might surround the Muslim world and help reclaim Jerusalem. The legend was a cosmic salve for a wounded Christendom. If the Holy Land was lost and Europe was fractious, then God's perfect kingdom must exist somewhere else, a parallel realm operating under divine law. Prester John's kingdom was a theological necessity, a proof that God's plan for a harmonious, righteous society could actually work on earth, even if it was hidden beyond the known world. It was a beacon, a celestial city made manifest in rumor, holding out the promise that paradise was not lost to the past or reserved for heaven, but was a present political reality in a distant valley waiting to be found. The desperate hope in his existence shaped exploration for generations, pushing travelers ever further into the unknown, always believing that just over the next mountain range or beyond the next desert, they would find the kingdom where the lion did not need to be brave because there was nothing to fear. The utopian dream of Prester John offered a hidden kingdom of perfect order, but the Norse saw no such sanctuary. Their cosmos, held together by the suffering world tree Yggdrasil, was destined for a final, convulsive end. And one of the key architects of that doom was not a god, but a monstrous child, a creature born of mischief and thrown into the sea, only to grow into a living prison for the world itself. This is Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent. The story begins with Loki, the trickster god, whose chaotic nature knew no bounds. He fathered 3 children with the giantess Angerboda, each a nightmare made flesh. There was the wolf Fenrir, bound by a magical ribbon forged from impossible things. There was Hel, the ruler of the dishonorable dead. And then there was Jörmungandr, a serpent of such vile potential that the gods themselves, upon seeing it, knew it could not be allowed to roam free. Odin, in a desperate act of containment, seized the writhing creature and hurled it from the high walls of Asgard, down into the vast, cold ocean that surrounded the human realm of Midgard. They thought the deep would be its tomb. They were wrong. In the crushing darkness of the sea, Jörmungandr did not die. It grew. It fed on the leviathans of the deep and the very bitterness of the sea, expanding year after year, century after century, until its colossal, scaled body formed a perfect, terrifying loop around all the lands of Midgard. It had become so vast that it could grasp its own tail in its mouth, an Ouroboros of pure, encircling menace. The ocean was no longer just water, it was the serpent's coiled embrace. Sailors told tales of mountainous, scaled ridges breaking the surface in stormy seas, mistaken for chains of unknown islands. The very horizon seemed to pulse with its slow, eternal heartbeat. This was the ultimate symbol of containment turning into encirclement. The gods had tried to exile the threat, and in doing so, they had allowed it to become the boundary of the world it was meant to terrorize. Yet Jörmungandr was not merely a passive boundary. It had an eternal enemy, a relationship of pure, destined antagonism. That enemy was Thor, the thunder god, the protector of mankind, and the mightiest warrior of Asgard. Their feud was legendary. On one fishing trip, Thor, disguised, went out with the giant Hymir, baiting his hook with the head of a great ox. He cast his line into the water, and Jörmungandr took the bait. The god heaved, and the serpent's monstrous head broke the surface, eyes blazing with hatred, venom spraying like a geyser. Thor raised his hammer, Mjolnir, for the killing blow, but Hymir, terrified of the consequences, cut the line, and the serpent sank back into the abyss. That moment was a preview of the end of all things, for in the Norse vision, destiny was not a suggestion, it was a script. The final act was Ragnarok, the twilight of the gods. It would begin with a Fimbulwinter, 3 years of endless cold and darkness. Then the bonds would break, the wolf Fenrir would slip free, and from the churning, poisoned sea, Jörmungandr would rise. Its emergence would be a cataclysm. As it hauled its world-encircling body onto the land, the oceans would drain from their beds and surge over the continents in a tidal wave of biblical scale. Its very breath would be a mist of venom, poisoning both the sky and the remaining seas, a toxic fog that would choke the last life from the dying earth. On the battlefield of Vigrid, chaos would reign, and there, in the midst of the slaughter, the two ancient foes would find each other. Thor, lightning crackling from his brow and Mjolnir in hand, would stride toward the serpent. Jörmungandr, towering over the god, would spew its venomous breath. The battle would be titanic, a clash that shook the foundations of the crumbling cosmos. Thor, in a final, mighty blow, would crush the serpent's skull with his hammer, but as the monster fell, it would exhale one last dying breath. Thor, drenched in the serpent's venom, would stagger back 9 steps and then fall dead himself, slain by the poison of his greatest adversary. This dual death is the brutal, poetic heart of the legend. It is not a victory for order or chaos. It is a mutual annihilation. The protector of humanity and the encircler of the world cancel each other out, leaving nothing. Jörmungandr's legend embodies the core Norse belief in cyclical destiny and the terrifying scale of their apocalypse. Even a creature so vast it could girdle the entire earth was not eternal. It had a role, a foe, and an appointed time to die, taking a piece of the cosmos with it. The world began in the void, and to the void it would return, with the death rattle of a serpent echoing in the emptiness it once filled. The death of a serpent at the end of time is a final, violent separation of order from chaos. But in the very beginning, according to one of the oldest written epics, order had to be carved from the body of chaos itself. This is the Babylonian Enuma Elish, a creation story of staggering cosmic violence that established the very blueprint for divine kingship. Before anything else, there was only water, but not a single ocean. There were 2 vast, primordial beings mingled together in a formless, watery mass. One was the male Apsu, representing the sweet, fresh waters that gather in the earth and the clouds. The other was the female Tiamat, the personification of the bitter, salt waters of the sea. From their union, the first generations of gods were born. But these new gods were not quiet. They were vibrant, energetic, and loud. Their dancing and revelry disturbed the deep, silent slumber of Apsu, who grew furious at the noise. He went to Tiamat, proposing a terrible solution. "Let us destroy our own children," he said, "so we may have quiet and rest again." Tiamat, the mother, was horrified. "How could we destroy what we have made?" But Apsu was determined. The younger gods, hearing of this plot, were thrown into panic. One among them, the clever god E, hatched a plan. He cast a powerful spell of sleep upon Apsu, and then, while the primordial father lay helpless, E slew him. He then built his own shining abode upon the corpse of Apsu, and there, with his consort, he fathered a son. This child was Marduk, born with 4 enormous ears and 4 eyes that saw everything. He was a storm god, radiating a raw, terrifying power that outshone all his ancestors. This act of patricide, however, had unleashed a greater fury. Tiamat, who had once pleaded for her children's lives, was now consumed by a roaring maternal rage. Her mate was dead, murdered by the very being she had defended. Her grief curdled into an all-consuming desire for vengeance. She decided to unmake creation itself. To wage her war, Tiamat began to create. she birthed a legion of monsters the likes of which the cosmos had never seen. She made giant serpents with venom for blood, fierce dragons with glittering scales, lion demons, scorpion men, and hounds with razor teeth. To lead this army, she appointed her new consort, the god Kingu, and she placed the tablets of destiny upon his chest, granting him the authority to decree the fates of all things. The forces of chaos were marshaled, ready to sweep away the noisy, rebellious gods forever. The younger gods who had once been so bold were now paralyzed with terror. They had no champion who could stand against Tiamat and her horrific host. One by one, the greatest among them tried to face her, but the mere sight of the primordial mother and her roaring monsters turned their hearts to water. They retreated in disgrace. In this moment of utter despair, and the gods turned to the youngest and most powerful of them all, Marduk. They made him an offer. If you will be our champion, if you will go forth and face Tiamat in single combat and defeat her, we will grant you supreme and unchallenged kingship over all the gods. Your word will become law, and your command will be absolute. Marduk, confident and fierce, agreed, but on one condition. He demanded that his authority be made real, not just promised. He told the assembly, if I am to be your avenger and establish your freedom, then proclaim my destiny supreme. Let my word, instead of yours, fix all fates. The terrified gods agreed, investing him with the scepter, the throne, and the royal robe. They gave him an invincible weapon, a thunderbolt, and he fashioned his own tools. He created a mighty bow, strung it with a constellation, and made arrows that would never miss. He gathered the four winds, the south, north, east, and west, to serve him, and he crafted a gigantic net held by the winds to ensnare Tiamat. Then he mounted his storm chariot, drawn by four ferocious tempest creatures, and rode out to meet the abyss. The confrontation was not a battle of armies, but a cosmic duel. Marduk faced Tiamat alone. He saw her there, a roiling, mountainous form of saltwater and rage, surrounded by her snarling monsters. He challenged her directly, accusing her of plotting evil and rejecting the natural affection of a mother. Enraged, Tiamat accepted the challenge, and she rushed at him, her mouth gaping wide, a chasm intending to swallow the storm god whole. This was her mistake. As she opened herself to devour him, Marduk commanded the evil wind to enter her. He drove the tempest into her mouth so that she could not close her jaws. Her body bloated with the raging winds, distending her form. Then Marduk took up his bow. He fired a single, fateful arrow directly into her open mouth. It tore through her inside, split her heart, and cut her inward parts. The arrow killed her. As her life force fled, Marduk stood upon her carcass. He then used his net, held fast by the winds, to capture all of her monstrous children, who now scrambled in confusion. He imprisoned them and took from Kingu the stolen tablets of destiny, fastening them upon his own chest. Now came the act of creation. Marduk looked upon the massive, lifeless body of Tiamat, the primordial chaos, and he saw in it the raw material for a new, ordered universe. He split her carcass into two great halves like a giant shellfish. With one half, he constructed the vault of the heavens, arching it high above to hold back the celestial waters. With the other half, he fashioned the solid earth below. From her eyes, he caused the Tigris and Euphrates rivers to flow. He arranged her tail into the band of the Milky Way, and from her breasts he formed the great mountains. He set the moon and stars in the heavens to mark the days, months, and years. From the blood of the defeated Kingu mixed with earth, he created humanity, decreeing that humans would toil so the gods could live at ease. Finally, he built the great city of Babylon with its towering temple, Esagila, as his earthly dwelling and the axis of this new world. The Enuma Elish is more than a creation myth. It is a political and cosmic manifesto. It establishes order literally from the butchered body of chaos. It frames kingship as something earned through a decisive, violent victory over the forces of dissolution and terror. The Babylonian king was seen as Marduk's earthly representative. his rule justified by this primordial triumph. Chaos in the form of the motherly, vengeful Tiamat is not merely defeated, she is dismantled and repurposed. The very substance of the enemy becomes the architecture of the civilized world. The universe is not born from an egg or a word, but from a battlefield, its structure a permanent monument to the god who dared to slay the sea. Marduk's violent creation built a universe of rigid order, but the stars he placed in the heavens were not merely decorations. They held stories of their own, written in light across the vast celestial river. In Japan, one of the most beloved of these stories transforms the shimmering band of the Milky Way into a river of longing, and two of its brightest stars into lovers eternally yearning for a bridge. This is the legend of Oriheim and Hikoboshi, the heart of the Tanabata festival. High in the celestial plain of Takamagahara, there lived a weaver princess named Oriheim, the daughter of the Sky King Tente. Her duty was to sit by the banks of the Amanagawa, the heavenly river, which we see as the Milky Way. There, with consummate skill, she wove breathtakingly beautiful fabrics for the robes of the gods. Her work was essential, but it was also lonely. She spent her days focused solely on her loom, and though her father was proud of her diligence, he worried for her happiness. Seeing her isolation, the Sky King arranged for her to meet a young cowherd who lived on the other side of the vast starry river. His name was Hikoboshi, and he tended the heavenly herds with great care. The moment Oriheim and Hikoboshi saw each other, they fell deeply, instantly in love. Their marriage was a joy, and for a time the heavens seemed brighter for their happiness. But soon a problem emerged. So consumed were they by their love for one another that they began to neglect their sacred duties entirely. Oriheim's loom fell silent. No more magnificent fabrics flowed from her hands to clothe the gods. Hikoboshi's celestial cattle wandered neglected and untended across the star fields. The cosmic order began to fray. The Sky King, initially pleased, now grew angry. The harmony of the heavens depended on everyone fulfilling their role. Their personal joy could not come at the expense of the universe's function. As punishment, he took the most severe action he could imagine. He separated them, decreeing that they must live on opposite sides of the Amanagawa, the glittering Milky Way, forever apart. The princess returned to her empty loom, and the cowherd to his scattered herds, both heartsick and desolate. Their sorrow was so profound, so genuine, that it moved even the stern Sky King. He relented, but only slightly. He proclaimed that they could meet once a year on the 7th day of the 7th month under one condition. They would have to cross the heavenly river themselves. The river, however, had no bridge. Seeing the lovers' despair, a flock of magpies took pity. They promised that on that one night, if the weather was clear, they would fly up to the heavens and form a living bridge with their own outstretched wings, allowing Oriheim to run across their backs into the arms of Hikoboshi. And so, every year, Japan celebrates Tanabata, the Star Festival. People write their wishes on colorful strips of paper called tanzaku and hang them on bamboo branches, hoping the stars will grant them. The entire celebration hinges on the weather. If the night of the 7th of July is clear, the magpies can fly, the bridge can form, and the lovers are reunited. But if it rains, the river swells, the magpies cannot come, and the lovers must wait another long, lonely year. Their stars, Vega and Altair, shine brightly on either side of the Milky Way's hazy band, a permanent celestial map of their story. This legend does something remarkable. It takes the cold, impersonal patterns of astronomy and weaves them into a tapestry of human emotion. The Milky Way is no longer just a collection of distant suns, it is a river of separation. Two specks of light are not just stars, they are a princess and a cowherd, their brightness a testament to their enduring love. The annual meeting is not just an astronomical alignment, it is a cosmic reunion, a reminder that even the heavens understand longing, duty, and the precious, fragile chance for connection. It turns the vast, uncaring universe into a place where love is written in the stars, and where, once a year, hope literally hangs on the clarity of the sky. The heavens may weep for lovers kept apart, but the sea holds no such pity for the pride of kings. On the wild, granite coast of Brittany, where the Atlantic gnaws at the land, they tell of a city more splendid than any other, a jewel of the Celtic world now lying silent beneath the waves. This was wise. Its founder, the wise King Gradlon, knew the ocean's hunger. He built his magnificent capital not on a cliff, but in a vast, fertile basin below the level of the sea itself, protected by an immense circular dike. This was no simple wall. It was a feat of divine engineering, a colossal barrier against the primal chaos of the waters. In that dike was set a single, massive bronze gate, the only entrance from the sea. And the key to that gate was not of iron, but of pure, shining gold. Gradlon wore this key on a chain around his own neck, a sacred trust. Within this man-made circle of safety, wise flourished. Its towers were said to be crystal, its streets paved with gemstones, and its wealth was beyond measure. It was a triumph of human will over nature, a bubble of civilization carved from the ocean's very domain. But within that bubble festered a rot, one personified by the king's own daughter, Princess Dahut. Beautiful and reckless, Dahut grew to despise the city's pious ways. She filled wise with decadence, turning its crystal towers into palaces of endless revelry. She wore a magical silver mask to seduce noblemen, luring them to their deaths each dawn. And into this corruption stepped a stranger, a knight in red armor who arrived on a black horse. He was a demon in disguise, and he whispered poison in Dahut's ear. He spoke of the sea not as a threat but as a lover, of the gate not as a lock but as a prison. He filled her with a craving for the wild, untamed chaos beyond the dike. One night, a storm of unnatural fury descended. The wind screamed like the damned, and the sea rose in mountainous waves that beat against the great barrier. In the heart of the tempest, the Red Knight came to Dahut, the gate. He told her, "Your father holds the key. If you love me, bring it to me." Drunk on wine and demonic persuasion, Dahut crept into her father's chamber as he slept. She stole the golden key from around his neck. With the storm raging, she ran to the bronze gate, placed the key in the lock, and turned it. The gate swung open. For a moment, there was only a terrible silence. Then the sea roared in. It was not a wave, but a wall of black water, a divine fist punching through the arrogance of stone. The dike shattered. The ocean poured into the basin, swallowing towers, palaces, and streets in a single, gurgling rush. King Gradlon awoke to the sound of his world ending. The saintly hermit Ganale found him and thrust him toward his fastest horse, telling him to flee and not look back. As the waters surged around the palace, Dahut, now screaming in terror, climbed onto the horse behind her father. The great steed, Morvark, leaped through the rising flood and began to gallop up the slope toward the high land, the king riding for his life, his daughter clinging to him. But as they fled, Gradlon heard a sound more terrible than the crashing waves. It was the collective cry of his people, thousands of voices rising from the drowning city, a chorus of the damned cursing his name and his daughter's sin. The sound clawed at his soul. Then a voice cut through the chaos, clear and divine. It was the voice of God, or perhaps the sea itself, speaking with final authority. "Cast the demon behind you into the deep," it commanded. "She is the cause of this." Gradlon, heartbroken but obedient to the cosmic law, hesitated only a moment. He reached back, pried his daughter's hands from his waist, and threw Princess Dahut into the churning waters. The moment she disappeared beneath the foam, the pursuing sea halted its chase. The king rode on alone to found the city of Quimper, but Wise was gone forever. On calm, clear days, Breton fishermen say you can sometimes hear the drowned city's bells ringing from below, a haunting reminder. This is not a simple flood story. It is a cosmic morality tale written in salt water. The sea here is not just a natural force. It is a divine, untamable power, a sleeping god that humanity foolishly believes it can fence in. The golden key represents not just security, but sacred responsibility. Dahat's sin was not mere disobedience, it was an alliance with chaos against order, a willful unlocking of the very principle of destruction. The legend argues that civilization is a fragile pact. It can only exist while it honors the boundaries set by higher powers. When human pride, fueled by corruption, breaks that pact, the divine sea does not negotiate. It simply takes back what was always its own. The waves that drowned wise were an executioner's blade, and its bells are a permanent sermon tolling from the deep, warning of the perilous line between a kingdom and the abyss. The bells of wise toll a warning from the deep, a reminder that some transgressions drown a city, but what of a sin that does not kill, that instead grants a terrible, endless life? In the shadowed lanes and pilgrim roads of medieval Europe, a different kind of ghost walked. He was not a spirit, but a man cursed by God to never die. This is the legend of the Wandering Jew. The story takes a simple, brutal moment from the Passion and stretches it across all of time. As Jesus, bowed under the weight of the cross, staggered through the streets of Jerusalem on the way to Golgotha, he paused to rest against the doorway of a cobbler's shop. The cobbler, often named Ahasuerus, shoved him away. "Move faster," he is said to have taunted. "Do not linger here." Jesus looked at him, and with a calm that held the weight of eternity, replied, "I go, but you will wait until I return." With those words, the ordinary mechanics of a human life were shattered for Ahasuerus. He was not struck dead. He was not made a king. He was cursed with immortality, condemned to walk the earth without rest, without home, without the release of death, until the end of the world itself. This was not a punishment of pain, but of presence. He would be a perpetual witness, forced to watch century after century unfold, to see empires rise and crumble, languages change, and landscapes transform, all while remaining unchanged himself, a living fossil of a single moment of cruelty. The legend spread like a dark vine across Christendom. Sightings were reported for centuries. A gaunt, weary traveler with a profound sadness in his eyes would appear at a monastery gate or in a tavern, always just passing through. He would tell his story to a shocked listener, confirming the truth of the Gospels, and then vanish into the night, compelled to keep moving. He became a walking memento mori and a living proof of prophecy, his very existence a ticking clock counting down to the second coming. His curse tied a personal fate directly to the cosmic timeline of Christian eschatology. He was not just a man being punished, he was a human landmark in sacred history. His wandering would only cease when Christ returned to judge the living and the dead, meaning his endless journey was a slow, painful measurement of the time between the crucifixion and the apocalypse. The legend transformed a fleeting act of malice into an engine of eternal consequence. It asked a terrifying theological question: what does it mean to be alive when life is not a gift but a sentence? To see everyone you might care for turn to dust again and again. The Wandering Jew was the ultimate outsider, a soul trapped in the flow of history, forced to observe the human drama from a distance of forever, a perpetual reminder that some choices echo not just in a lifetime but in the lifespan of the world. A world of eternal twilight lay just beyond the hedgerows of an ordinary English village. In the reign of King Stephen, during the tumultuous 12th century, the people of Woolpit in Suffolk were harvesting their fields when they made a discovery that would haunt chronicles for centuries. They found two children, a boy and a girl, huddled at the mouth of an old wolf pit, the very feature that gave the village its name. The children were dressed in strange, unfamiliar clothes. But it was their skin that stopped the breath of every villager who saw them. It was a pale, vivid shade of green. They spoke in a language no one could recognize, a stream of sounds that held no meaning for English ears. And when they were offered bread and other common foods, they refused to eat, growing weaker by the day. It was only when someone brought fresh green beans, still in their pods, that the children showed interest. They took the beans but did not know how to open them. When shown, they ate the raw beans with a desperate hunger, and for a long time that was all they would consume. The villagers took them in. The boy, who seemed younger and frailer, soon sickened and died, but the girl grew stronger. Slowly, she lost her green pigmentation, her skin fading to a normal human hue as she adapted to her new diet and life. In time, she learned to speak English, and when she could finally tell her story, she revealed an origin that defied all logic. She said she and her brother came from a place called St. Martin's Land. It was a twilight realm, she explained, where the sun never rose. The light there was perpetual, like the dim, diffused glow just after sunset. All the people in that land, she claimed, were green, just as she and her brother had been. She described a day when she and her brother were tending their father's flocks. They heard a loud sound like the ringing of great bells and were suddenly overcome by a strange drowsiness. When they awoke, they found themselves in the wolf pit at Woolpit, blinded by the shocking, unfamiliar brightness of our sun and terrified by the clamor of the harvesters. She could give no further details about where this land was or how one might reach it. She eventually married a local man and lived out her life in our world, but her tale never lost its otherworldly chill. Historians have tried to rationalize the account for centuries. Perhaps they were Flemish children, lost and starving, their skin discolored by chloroses, a form of anemia, speaking a language the isolated villagers did not know. Perhaps they were survivors of a forgotten underground community, emerging into the light with legends of a sunless home, but the story resists such neat explanations. It reads like a first-hand report from the border of a fairy tale. St. Martin's Land feels less like a foreign country and more like a neighboring dimension, a pocket of the Celtic otherworld that had momentarily brushed against Suffolk. The green color, the aversion to all but green food, the perpetual twilight, and the sudden, disorienting transportation all align with older lore of the Shia. The loud bells could be the music of the silver branch, the sound that opens the way between worlds. This legend is not about conquest or creation, but about accidental contact. It captures the medieval mind's deep belief that the cosmos was layered, that other peoples, other kinds of beings, could exist just out of phase with our own reality, in lands where different rules of light and color applied. The Green Children were cosmic stowaways, living proof that the world was wider and stranger than any map could show, and that sometimes the door between here and there swings open for just a moment, letting something impossible stumble through. While the Green Children were accidental travelers from a sunless realm, other legends tell of those who entered the darkness deliberately, seeking refuge, only to have time itself unravel around them. In the 3rd century, under the brutal reign of the Roman Emperor Decius, a campaign of persecution sought to stamp out the fledgling Christian faith. Citizens were forced to offer sacrifices to the Roman gods and the emperor's genius, a test of loyalty that meant death or torture for those who refused. In the great city of Ephesus, 7 young men of noble birth faced this impossible choice. They were devout Christians, and they could not in conscience perform the pagan rites. But to refuse was a death sentence, so they chose a third path, one of radical trust. They fled the city, taking only what they could carry, and sought shelter in a cave on nearby Mount Anchilos. There they prayed together for deliverance, knowing the authorities would soon be searching for them. Exhausted by fear and sorrow, they fell into a deep, natural sleep. And then God intervened in a way that bent the very fabric of reality. He placed them into a miraculous slumber, a state of suspended animation that was far more than rest. Their bodies did not age, their hearts barely beat, dust settled on their still forms, and the entrance to the cave was, according to some versions, sealed by divine will or by falling rocks. The world outside moved on without them. Decius died. The Roman Empire itself crumbled and transformed. Christianity went from a persecuted sect to the official religion of the state under Emperor Theodosius. Nearly 200 years had passed. Then, during the reign of the Christian Emperor Theodosius II, a landowner decided to open up the sealed cave, hoping to use it as a cattle pen or to quarry stone. His workers cleared the entrance. The sunlight, absent for centuries, streamed into the dark chamber, and the 7 sleepers awoke. They stirred, believing they had slept only a single night. Still fearing the wrath of Decius, they sent one of their number, named Malchus, back into Ephesus to buy bread and cautiously scout the situation. He left the cave, but nothing was familiar. The city gates bore a strange symbol, the cross, now proudly displayed. The people spoke of Christ openly, and when Malchus tried to use his old coins to buy bread, the baker was stunned. The currency was centuries out of date, a relic from the era of Decius. Word spread quickly through the city that a man had appeared with ancient money and an even more ancient story. The bishop and the emperor himself were summoned. Malchus led them back to the cave where his 6 companions waited. There, the 7 young men told their tale to the astonished crowd. They had hidden from a pagan emperor and awoke in a Christian empire. In that moment, they were living, breathing proof of the resurrection of the dead, a divine sign to a church that was then struggling with a heresy denying that very possibility. Having given their testimony, the 7 men lay down in the cave once more and peacefully died, their purpose fulfilled. Their bodies were enshrined as holy relics. But the legend did not end there. It traveled east, carried along trade routes and through the deserts of Arabia. It found a home in a new faith, Islam, where it was revered and recorded in the 18th chapter of the Quran, Surah al-Kahf, which means the cave. Here the story is told with profound reverence. The young men, called the companions of the cave, are pious youths who flee the idolatry of their city. They take refuge in the cave, praying for God's mercy, and God hears them. He causes them to sleep for 309 years, turning their bodies to the right and left so they would not decay, while their dog, Kitmir, sleeps faithfully at the entrance. When they awaken, they too are confused by the passage of time, and one is sent to the city for food with a warning to be cautious. Their discovery causes the people to marvel at the power of God. In the Islamic tradition, their story is a central sign of God's ability to protect the faithful and to manipulate time itself for a sacred purpose. It is a lesson about the fleeting nature of worldly power versus the eternal truth of divine promise. This single legend, spanning 2 faiths and hundreds of years, creates a unique cosmic bridge. It presents time not as a straight line, but as a foldable tapestry. God can pinch centuries together, making them pass like a single night for those under His protection. The cave becomes a pocket outside of history, a sacred waiting room where faith is preserved in a state of perfect purity, untouched by the corruptions and changes of the outside world. The sleepers are not heroes of action, but witnesses of patience. Their power lies in their stillness, in their trust so complete that it allowed the universe to pause around them. They are a testament to the idea that sometimes the most revolutionary act is not to fight the storm, but to sleep through it and awaken in a new dawn you helped make possible simply by holding fast. Deep in the remote jungles of Papua New Guinea, nightfall brings a different kind of darkness, and with it, a legend that refuses to stay in the past. For generations, local islanders have spoken of the ropen, a creature of shadow and unsettling light. It is described as a large, leathery winged being, nocturnal and silent in its flight, that makes its home in the mouths of deep sea caves. Its most haunting feature is not its size or its form, but a strange, eerie glow. Witnesses say a ghostly bioluminescence pulses along its body as it skims the coastline, a living specter hunting for fish in the Inkai black water. To the Western ear, this account sounds like a classic monster story, but when explorers and cryptozoologists began to listen, they heard something startlingly specific. The descriptions did not match any known bird or bat. Instead, they evoked a creature from a chapter of Earth's history believed to be firmly closed, the pterosaur, the flying reptile of the dinosaur age. Could it be possible? Is the ropen a surviving relic, a living pterosaur that somehow endured the great extinction that wiped out its kin 66 million years ago? From a purely scientific standpoint, the evidence is anecdotal and hotly contested. No specimen, no clear photograph, no definitive proof has been produced. Yet within the framework of cosmic legend, the ropen story is profoundly compelling. It represents the powerful idea of the living fossil, not in the biological sense of a slowly evolving species, but in the mythic sense. It is a fragment of a lost cosmic era, a solitary holdout from the age of primordial giants. This legend suggests that deep time is not a linear procession neatly locked away in rock layers. It posits that the past might not be entirely past, that in the world's last unmapped corners, the trackless rainforests, the labyrinthine cave systems, the mist-shrouded islands, pockets of a former world might still persist, hidden like secrets the earth has not yet surrendered. The ropen, whether real animal or persistent myth, becomes a symbol of that possibility. It is a whisper from the Cretaceous period, a flickering, bioluminescent reminder that our current cosmic order, the age of mammals and humanity, is just the latest layer. Beneath it, or perhaps alongside it in the darkest jungle night, the ancient ruling spirits of a hotter, wilder world might still be gliding on leathery wings, waiting for us to look up and see the distant past alive in our present sky. The cosmos holds many secrets, but few are as perplexing as one whispered across the dry plains of Mali. In the 1930s, French anthropologists studying the Dogon people made an astonishing claim. This isolated West African tribe, with no access to telescopes or modern science, appeared to possess detailed, accurate knowledge about one of the most distant and complex star systems in our sky, Sirius. They knew the brightest star we see, Sirius A, had a tiny, incredibly dense companion star they called Potolo. They described its elliptical 50-year orbit around Sirius A, and they understood this invisible companion was made of a metal heavier than iron, calling it the smallest thing and the heaviest star. To Western astronomy, this companion, Sirius B, a white dwarf star, was only confirmed in the 19th century with powerful telescopes. Its immense density was a revolutionary discovery. So how did the Dogon know? Their own oral traditions provided a breathtaking answer. They said this knowledge was a gift from the Nommo, ancient amphibious beings who came to Earth from the Sirius system in a great arc that spun like a whirlwind. The Nommo, described as half fish, half human teachers, were said to have landed in a vessel that stirred up a great dust storm, bringing water, civilization, and this profound celestial wisdom to the Dogon ancestors. This story, emerging in the mid-20th century, ignited a firestorm of speculation. It became a cornerstone of the ancient astronaut theory, a perfect cosmic mystery. How could an isolated culture map the heavens with such impossible precision? The implications seem to fracture our understanding of history, suggesting a thread of contact, a transmission of knowledge from starfarers in the distant past. The legend presents a stark, beautiful puzzle. Either the Dogon, through generations of meticulous observation and oral tradition, achieved an astronomical insight that rivaled modern science, or their story is a literal record of visitation, a handed-down memory of teachers who came from the stars. It forces us to confront the limits of our assumptions about ancient knowledge and the very pathways of wisdom itself. Is the night sky a book anyone can learn to read, given enough time and attention, or is it, as the Dogon legend implies, a map left behind by travelers, waiting for us to understand where they came from? A different kind of silence fills the pages of a book no one can read. Locked away in the vaults of Yale University is a manuscript that has swallowed the curiosity of cryptographers and historians for over a century. It is called the Voynich Manuscript, a small, unassuming codex created in the early 15th century, likely in northern Italy. To the untrained eye, it is simply an old book. But to open it is to step into a room of perfect, elegant nonsense. Its over 200 vellum pages are covered from edge to edge in a flowing, unknown script, a beautiful but utterly alien handwriting. The text, written left to right with apparent fluency, uses characters found in no other language on Earth. It is not a simple substitution cipher. The statistical patterns of its words resemble a real language with its own syntax and grammar, yet it remains a linguistic fortress that has resisted every assault, from wartime codebreakers to supercomputers. This text accompanies illustrations that are just as bewildering. There are pages of impossible plants, herbs with bulbous roots and leaves that seem to belong to no known botanical family, painted in delicate greens and reds. There are intricate astrological charts featuring unfamiliar zodiac symbols, with nude women bathing in interconnected tubes and pools that look like a celestial plumbing system. One section shows hundreds of tiny, naked figures, mostly female, floating in what seems to be a diagram of cellular biology or perhaps a map of microscopic life, centuries before the invention of the microscope. There are fold-out pages of what might be cosmological maps, showing strange, island-like structures floating in seas of stars. Who wrote this? For whom was it made? Was it a hoax, a madman's diary, or the textbook of a secret society? As a cosmic legend, the Voynich Manuscript is more than a puzzle. It is the physical embodiment of lost knowledge. It represents the terrifying possibility that an entire school of thought, a complete understanding of the natural world fused with cosmic principles, has simply vanished from history. Perhaps it is an alchemical treatise detailing the spiritual properties of plants that no longer grow, mapping the connection between specific herbs and the movements of forgotten stars. Maybe it is a pharmacopoeia from a parallel tradition of medicine, where healing was a divine art tied to the phases of obscure constellations. Its astrological sections could chart relationships between celestial bodies we no longer recognize, outlining a cosmic harmony that modern astronomy has overlooked. The very agony of the manuscript is its silence. It sits there, dense with what appears to be deliberate, sophisticated information. It feels like a message. The cosmic truth it suggests is that our current understanding of the universe might be just one volume in a vast library. Other volumes, written in languages we have forgotten how to speak, might describe the cosmos in terms of vital fluids, sympathetic magic, or spiritual botany. The Voynich Manuscript is a hole in our timeline, a reminder that knowledge is not a steady accumulation, but a fragile thing. Empires fall, libraries burn, and entire ways of seeing can be erased, leaving behind only a beautiful, cryptic artifact that mocks our certainty. It asks us a haunting question: what profound truths about the nature of stars and plants and our own bodies have we already lost, simply because we lost the key to the book they were written in? A single, simple object can become a vortex of destiny. Among the most potent relics of the Passion is the Holy Lance, also known as the Spear of Destiny, the very weapon said to have pierced the side of Christ as he hung upon the cross. The Gospel of John records the moment a Roman soldier, traditionally named Longinus, thrust his spear into Jesus' side to confirm his death, and immediately blood and water flowed out. That act, a final brutality, was transformed in legend into a moment of profound, unintended grace, for Longinus was said to have been healed of blindness by the very blood that spat at him, converting on the spot. But the spear itself did not vanish into history. It became something far more dangerous than a symbol. It became a battery of cosmic power. The legend that grew around it stated a breathtaking claim: whoever holds this lance and understands its secrets holds the destiny of the world in their hands. This was not a metaphor about spiritual authority. It was a literal promise of temporal, earth-shaking power. Its journey through history reads like a shadow biography of Western Empire, a thread of dark providence stitched through the tapestry of kings and conquerors. The first great emperor to wield its rumored power was Constantine the Great. On the eve of the Battle of the Milvian Bridge in 312, Constantine is said to have had a vision, but later legends entwined that vision with the lance. They claimed he fought under the sign of the cross and carried a holy spear, a talisman that guaranteed his victory and his conversion of the Roman Empire to Christianity. The lance became the sword of the Lord's anointed, a divine mandate made of iron and wood. Centuries later, it reappeared in the hands of Charlemagne, the founder of the Holy Roman Empire. The story goes that he carried the Holy Lance through 47 victorious battles, believing its power made him unconquerable. His empire stretched across Europe, a new Christian order built, the legend suggests, on the point of this sacred weapon. But the curse of the lance was as potent as its blessing. It was said that Charlemagne, in his final years, accidentally dropped the spear while crossing a river. He died shortly after, his invincibility broken the moment the relic left his hand. The lesson was clear: the lance granted power, but that power was conditional and perilously fleeting. The legend reached its zenith in the High Middle Ages with the German Emperor Frederick Barbarossa. He possessed the lance, and with it he forged a mighty realm. Yet the stories warned that if the lance were ever lost, the one who possessed it would die. During the Third Crusade, leading his army toward Jerusalem, Frederick decided to cross a river in Anatolia. According to the tale, he chose to ride ahead, and in the middle of the current his horse stumbled. The emperor, weighed down by his armor, fell into the water and drowned. The Holy Lance was not lost, it remained with his army, but the ominous prophecy seemed to hang over his fate, a reminder that the relic's favor was as unpredictable as a river's current. This transformation of the spear is a profound alchemy of myth. It takes an object of the deepest Christian sacrifice, an instrument of suffering that confirmed Christ's death, and inverts its energy. No longer just a mournful relic, it becomes a font of raw, transferable power. Its authenticity was almost secondary. What mattered was the belief it inspired. To hold the lance was to hold the physical proof of a covenant with divine providence itself. It blended the theology of the Passion, where blood brings redemption, with the older, primal magic of regalia, where a king's sword or scepter contains the spirit of the kingdom. The Spear of Destiny became the ultimate symbol of this fusion, where geopolitics was guided by a divine, if ambiguous, hand. Emperors did not just rule by law or force, they ruled because they held the key to a cosmic mystery, a piece of the crucifixion that could tilt the fortunes of war and crown the masters of the world. Its legend asks a haunting question about history itself. Are the rises and falls of empires merely the work of human ambition and chance, or are they, in some unseen way, tied to the journey of a single, ancient point of iron, moving through time like a needle stitching together the fate of nations? Yet the power of a sacred relic is not always found in the iron of a spear or the gold of a key. Sometimes it is woven into the fragile fabric of a simple square of silk, a gift from a world that exists just beyond the edge of human sight. In the ancestral castle of Dunvegan on the misty Isle of Skye, such a treasure is kept under heavy guard. It is the fairy flag of the MacLeods, a tattered, fragile banner of yellowed silk, its edges fraying with impossible age. To look at it, you might see only a ruined piece of cloth, but to know its story is to understand a covenant written in threads of magic. The legend says that long ago, an early chief of the MacLeods fell in love with a woman of breathtaking beauty. They married, and she bore him a son, but after a time, a profound melancholy settled upon her. She would often wander alone to a grassy knoll near the castle, a place the locals whispered was a Scythian, a fairy mound. One evening, the chief, worried for his wife, followed her. He watched from the shadows as she approached the knoll. The air shimmered, and a host of the fairy folk emerged to greet her not as a stranger but as one of their own. In that moment he understood. His wife was not human. She was a fairy princess bound by her people's law to return to the otherworld once her mortal child was weaned. The time had come. Heartbroken, the chief confronted her. She confessed the truth, explaining she must leave both him and their infant son forever. but as a final gift of love, she gave him the fairy flag. She laid down strict and solemn instructions. This banner was not for decoration or for boasting. It was a weapon of last resort, a single thread of connection to her own powerful realm. In times of the clan's most extreme peril, when all hope was lost, the chief was to unfurl it. The flag would summon aid from the fairy host, intervening directly in the affairs of men. It could multiply the number of MacLeod warriors on a battlefield, turning a doomed handful into an invincible army. It could ensure victory against impossible odds. It could even save the life of the chief himself from certain death. But this power came with a severe and non-negotiable limit. The flag could be used only 3 times. After the third unfurling, its magic would be spent, and the bond between the clan and the otherworld would be severed. This is not a story of a vague blessing. It is a precise cosmic contract. The fairy wife, by marrying a mortal, had already bent the rules of her own reality. The flag was the physical token of that bending, a permit for further intervention. But such interference had a cost, measured in 3 distinct withdrawals from an account of divine favor. History, or at least clan tradition, claims to record 2 of those uses. The first was at the Battle of Bloody Bay in the 15th century, where the MacLeods, fighting alongside other clans, were being slaughtered. The flag was unfurled, and though the broader conflict was lost, the MacLeod contingent managed to fight their way clear against all expectation, their survival attributed to the supernatural reinforcement. The second was to save a later chief from a deadly illness. As he lay dying, the flag was draped over his bed, and he recovered miraculously overnight. One use remains. The tattered silk still lies in its case, a single charge of absolute destiny left in its threads. This legend distills the Celtic cosmic view into a single, tangible object. The otherworld is not a metaphor, but a parallel jurisdiction. Its inhabitants have their own laws and immense power. A pact with them is as real as a treaty with a neighboring kingdom, but far more dangerous and profound. The flag is a diplomatic passport between realms, a promise that in the moment of absolute human desperation, the cosmos itself, in the form of the fairy host, will lean in and tip the scales. It makes fate a matter of negotiation, where a single, desperate act can summon an army from the twilight to fight under a sun it never sees. The MacLeods do not just keep a relic, they guard a remaining question written in silk for the entire world. What dire hour will come that justifies using the last wish of the universe? Gold is not always a blessing. In the dark, mist-shrouded forests of ancient Germanic legend, a treasure lies waiting, and its gleam is a poison that unravels kingdoms. This is the story of the Nibelungenlied, a sprawling epic of heroism, love, and a curse woven directly into the metal of a dragon's hoard. At its heart is not a sword of power or a holy relic, but something far more treacherous, a mass of gold that twists fate itself. The tragedy begins with a dwarf named Alberich, a guardian of the earth's deep secrets. He possessed a hoard of unimaginable wealth, a treasure that included a cloak of invisibility. But this gold was never meant for mortal hands, for it was bound with a terrible promise, or perhaps a warning, from the moment it was gathered. The hero Siegfried, mighty and bold after slaying a dragon and bathing in its blood to become nearly invincible, discovered Alberich and his treasure. He defeated the dwarf and took the hoard for himself. In that moment, Siegfried did not merely acquire wealth, he shouldered a cosmic burden. The gold was a weight that would drag him and everyone connected to him into the abyss. Siegfried traveled to the court of the Burgundians, where he fell in love with the beautiful Kriemhild. To win her, he helped her brother, King Gunther, defeat the warrior Queen Brunhild through trickery and the use of his invisibility cloak. The marriages were made, but the deception planted a seed of bitter resentment in Brunhild's heart. Years later, that resentment flowered into a plot for murder. The catalyst was the cursed hoard. Siegfried had given the treasure to Kriemhild as a bridal gift, and her possession of such immense wealth bred envy and suspicion at court. In a fateful quarrel between the two queens, Kriemhild and Brunhild, the existence of the gold and the old deceptions were flung as accusations. To protect his own honor and his wife's pride, Gunther's vassal Hagen saw a solution: eliminate Siegfried. He tricked Kriemhild into revealing the one spot on her husband's body untouched by the dragon's blood, a single leaf-shaped patch between his shoulder blades. Then, during a hunt, Hagen drove a spear into that spot, murdering the hero at a peaceful spring. But the curse was not satisfied with a single death. The hoard, now Kriemhild's inheritance, became an obsession. Fearing its power, Hagen stole it and sank it to the bottom of the Rhine River, thinking to remove its poison from the world. Instead, he only deepened the curse. Kriemhild's grief curdled into a cold, all-consuming hunger for vengeance. She married Etzel, the mighty king of the Huns, and after years of planning, she invited her Burgundian brothers and Hagen to a feast in a distant land. It was a trap. What followed was a slaughter of apocalyptic scale. The great hall of Etzel's fortress became a charnel house. The Burgundians fought with desperate valor, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Brother killed brother, friend killed friend, in a frenzy of blood that left the entire dynasty dead. Kriemhild achieved her revenge, personally beheading her brother Gunther and then the hated Hagen, but she herself was cut down immediately after, the last victim of the cycle she had set in motion. The treasure itself, lying forgotten in the river mud, was the silent architect of this ruin. In this legend, gold is not an inert metal. It is an active, malevolent force, a cosmic test with a single, cruel outcome. It functions like a divine or infernal mechanism, a snare for human ambition. The moment Siegfried seized it, he activated a chain of destiny that could only end in absolute annihilation. The hoard magnifies every human flaw: greed, envy, pride, and deceit, turning them into instruments of doom. Alberich the dwarf, a being from a different order of reality, was its proper guardian, for he understood its true nature. Mortals like Siegfried and the Burgundians saw only its shine, not the curse etched into every coin. By sinking the gold, Hagen did not break the spell. He only ensured that its final price would be the total destruction of his entire people. The treasure demanded a blood sacrifice equal to its perceived value, and it collected that debt with horrific precision. This legend presents a universe where interacting with otherworldly power is never a transaction. It is a pact with fate itself, and the terms are always written in blood. The Rhine gold sleeps, waiting, a reminder that some lights in the darkness are not meant to be followed. Gold can curse a dynasty, but a single broken promise can unravel a foundation built by magic itself. In the rolling hills of medieval France, the lords of Lusignan told a story of their origin that was both a blessing and a ghost story. Their greatness, they claimed, did not come from a sword or a crown, but from a wife who was only half human. Her name was Melusine. Raymond, the young lord of Lusignan, first met her by a forest fountain. She was a vision of impossible beauty and noble grace, and he was instantly smitten. But she came with a condition, a covenant that would test the very fabric of trust. She would marry him, she said, and bring him immense fortune, powerful sons, and legendary prosperity. In return, he must grant her 1 day of absolute privacy each week. He must never, under any circumstance, seek her out or look upon her on a Saturday. If he ever broke this vow, she warned, she would be lost to him forever, and the great fortune she brought would curdle into a lasting doom. Raymond, blinded by love and ambition, readily agreed. The marriage was a marvel. Melusine was not just a noble consort, she was a genius of creation. With astonishing speed, she oversaw the construction of magnificent castles and strongholds, including the formidable fortress of Lusignan itself, which was said to rise from the earth almost overnight, its stones laid by unseen hands. She bore Raymond many sons, each destined for greatness, though each carried a small, strange mark of their otherworldly heritage: a lion's paw, a boar's tusk, a fiery glance. The family's power and wealth grew exponentially, all clearly flowing from the mysterious grace of Melusine. For years the pact held. Saturdays would come, and Melusine would retreat to her chambers, locking the door. Raymond, busy with the affairs of his thriving domain, respected her secret, but envy and suspicion are poisons that work slowly. Whispers began at court, fed by Raymond's own brother. What dark magic did she perform behind that locked door? Was she meeting a lover? Was she a witch or something worse? The doubt festered in Raymond's mind, twisting his love into a gnawing anxiety. One fateful Saturday, he could bear it no longer. Driven by a toxic mix of suspicion and a desperate need to know, he crept to her chamber door. Perhaps he drilled a tiny hole in the wood or lifted a loose tile in the ceiling. He peered inside. What he saw was not infidelity nor witchcraft, but a truth far more profound and terrifying. There, in her private bath, was Melusine, but her lower body was not that of a woman. From the waist down, she was a gigantic, glistening serpent, or in some versions, a fish with scales like polished silver. She was combing her long hair, singing a low, ancient song, utterly at peace in her true form. In that instant, Raymond's world shattered. He had not caught her in a sin, he had witnessed her sacred reality. He had seen the divine, shape-shifting being beneath the human mask, the serpentine spirit of the fountain, and the earth who had chosen to build his world. A gasp escaped his lips. Melusine heard it. She turned, and her face was not one of anger, but of infinite, heartbreaking sorrow. The vow was broken. The pact was void. She let out a mournful cry that echoed through the stone halls, a sound of loss so deep it seemed to come from the roots of the mountains. Then the transformation completed. Her body shifted, grew, wings of leather and scale erupted from her back. Before Raymond's horrified eyes, his wife, the architect of his kingdom, transformed into a magnificent, mournful dragon. With one last, lingering look at the children she would never see grow, she burst through the window of the tower and flew away, circling the castle 3 times with a sound like a thunderous lament before disappearing into the sky. She never returned as a wife, but the legend says she did not vanish entirely. She became the ghost of the lineage, the Dame Blanche or White Lady of Lusignan. Whenever a lord of her blood was about to die, or whenever the castle itself was threatened, her serpent dragon form would appear, circling the battlements, crying her terrible, beautiful cry. She was both the founder and the omen. Her magic had built the dynasty's fortune, and her eternal haunting became its living conscience and its portent of doom. This legend is a masterful weave of cosmic themes. Melusine is the fairy bride, like the wife of the MacLeod chief, but her condition is not about summoning aid in battle. It is about respecting the fundamental otherness of the divine. Her Saturday transformation is not a curse she bears, but her essential nature, a necessary return to her primordial state. Raymond's sin is not curiosity itself, but a failure of faith. He was given paradise on the condition that he accept a mystery. His need to demystify, to control, to see the unseen, shattered the enchantment. The castles she built stand as monuments to a simple, devastating truth. Some foundations are laid by magic, and they can only stand if the magic is believed. Melusine's enduring haunting ensures that her descendants never forget the source of their power, or the precise cost of breaking a vow made not just to a wife, but to the serpentine spirit of the land itself. Melusine's haunting cry echoes the sorrow of a broken covenant, a reminder that the cosmic order can be shattered by a single act of disbelief. But what if the universe itself is bound by an unbreakable, grinding wheel, one that turns so slowly its motion is only visible across the lifetimes of civilizations? Our final legend is not of a hero or a relic, but of a machine, a cosmic mill. In the stark, poetic world of Norse mythology, there exists a story of a mill owned by a mysterious king named Amlothi, a figure often linked to the watchful god Heimdall. This was no ordinary gristmill. In the Golden Age, this colossal device was turned by giantesses, and it ground out not flour but peace and prosperity, filling the world with abundance and gold. It was the engine of a blessed era, but ages passed and the world fell from that initial perfection. The mill's nature changed. Now, in our weary, fallen time, the same immense mechanism grinds out only salt and sand. Its product is bitterness and barrenness, a literal and metaphorical wasteland. The image is hauntingly clear, a divine machine whose output reflects the moral and material state of the world. Yet this legend is far more than a simple metaphor for decline. To some scholars, like Giorgio de Santillana, this and similar myths from cultures across the globe are nothing less than encoded astronomical knowledge. They point to the precession of the equinoxes, one of the grandest and slowest cycles in our earthly experience. Our planet, you see, does not spin perfectly upright. It wobbles like a giant, slow-motion top. One complete wobble takes about 26,000 years. This gradual shift changes which constellation the sun appears to rise against on the spring equinox, moving backward through the zodiac. To an ancient culture meticulously tracking the stars over centuries, this shift would have been detectable. The entire vault of heaven would appear to be slowly turning, as if on a vast celestial axis. And what is a mill, if not a machine that turns? The giantesses turning the mill could be seen as personifications of time or celestial forces. The peace and gold of the Golden Age might correspond to a time when the sun rose in a specific, auspicious constellation, an age of mythic alignment. The salt and sand of our current era might symbolize the long, arduous grind of the cycle as it moves into a new, less fertile segment of the sky. This interpretation suggests our ancestors were not just storytellers, but cosmic observers of breathtaking patience. They witnessed a change so gradual it was imperceptible within a single human lifetime, yet they recorded it, translating that immense, silent motion into a powerful story of a world mill grinding the very substance of fate. The mill of Amlot becomes a profound cosmological metaphor. It is the universe as a great rhythmic machine, its gears made of stars, its product the very conditions of human existence. The legend acknowledges that we live within cycles far greater than kings or empires, cycles that measure time in millennia. Our current age of salt and sand is not a permanent state, but merely one phase in the mill's eternal rotation. The wheel will keep turning, and perhaps in another 26,000 years, the giantesses will once again produce gold. This final legend brings our journey full circle, back to the sky where we began. It suggests that all the stories of gods and monsters, of lost cities and wandering souls, are set against this immense turning backdrop. The cosmic mill grinds on, patient and inexorable, weaving our smaller myths into the grand, slow tapestry of the stars themselves. From the cosmic mill's slow grind to the last echo of a dragon's cry, these 35 legends form a constellation of human wonder. We have journeyed across continents and through time, from the celestial bureaucracy of Mesopotamia to the singing ancestors of the Dreamtime, from the self-sacrificing giant Pangu to the cursed gold of the Nibelungen. Each story, in its own breathtaking way, reveals a universe not of cold, empty space, but of profound, animated drama. For our ancestors, the thunder was not just a sound, it was the hammer of a god. The sunrise was not just a cycle, it was a nightly victory over chaos. The sea was not just water, it was a sleeping god, a grieving mother, or a serpent's coil. These narratives were the original science and philosophy, crafted to answer the deepest questions. Where do we come from? Why does the world work this way? What is our place within it all? They were not mere entertainment, they were the operating system of reality, teaching lessons of sacrifice, warning against pride, and mapping the delicate contract between humanity and the immense powers that govern life, death, and the turning stars. So, which of these cosmic visions spoke to you? Was it the fragile beauty of Yggdrasil, the World Tree, or the desperate, sacred duty of feeding the Aztec sun? Perhaps it was the quiet tragedy of Melusine or the haunting possibility of the Dogon star knowledge. The conversation about these divine mysteries is itself timeless. Share your favorite legend or one we missed in the comments below, and let's keep exploring the stories that taught us to look at the sky not with empty eyes, but with a sense of awe and belonging. If you enjoyed this journey through the celestial stories of old, subscribe and tap the bell for more deep dives into the wonders of history and myth. Until next time, keep looking up. The night sky still holds all the old stories, waiting for anyone who cares to listen.